Rejoice, everyone, we're back with another Sekhie Reacts to Fate. This week, Odysseus and Circe.
Yeah.
This one's been a long time in the making.
Almost. What, 20 years? I'm kidding. It has not been 20 years in the making.
Feels like that sometimes. Like, this is one that, like, I don't know how we went this long without doing them.
Well, okay, to be fair, I think originally Odysseus was earlier in the schedule. Because I think originally I was planning to do Odysseus closer to Achilles and the gang. Because I think we were planning to do more Greek heroes earlier. And then that plan just kind of got changed and pushed back. And then it kept getting... Much like Lan Ling. It just got pushed back a few times unintentionally. And we just didn't get around to it until now. And now seems like the perfect time, what with Epic having just concluded. Because my goal here is not to provide you with a chapter-by-chapter, book-by-book synopsis of the Iliad and the Odyssey. Right? That would not be amusing for you, and I don't think it would be amusing for me. Right? I don't think anyone who's here watching this video does not know what the Iliad and the Odyssey are. That doesn't mean I'm not going to talk about some of the events in them, because they're important to the characters. But I'm not going to sit here going, like, book by book, page by page. You know what I mean?
Give me that. Someone's got to do it.
You gotta... Oh, sing to me.
Homer makes us hearers, Pope has said. In Virgil...
That's not even the beginning of the
forward.
Odyssey. Yeah. I will have you know, the Iliad begins with the phrase, "Oh, sing to me, muses, the rage of Achilles, son of Peleus. And the wrath he wrought down upon the Greeks."
Rage, goddess, sing the rage of Peleus, son of Achilles, murderous doomed that the cost of...
Knick-knack, reread that first sentence.
No.
Knick-knack, re-say what you just said.
No.
Chat, point it out to him. Call him out on it. "Oh, sing to me, goddess of the rage of Peleus, son of Achilles." I'd already recited the opening. It's not as if we do not know the opening lines of this goddamn story. "Oh, sing to me, muses, of the rage of Achilles, the son of Peleus, and how he destroyed the Greeks." We know this. We are aware of this. No offense, but if you're here for Odysseus and you don't know about the Iliad and the Odyssey, well, I don't think I can help you at that point. I feel like you got to know something about the extant stories. And also, the Iliad and the Odyssey are some of the most recontextualized stories in all of literature. I mean, literally, the Romans wrote their own sequel story to it. You know?
We talked last
Dante talked about it.
Well, we talked not that long ago about all the times that Galatea's story's been aped and reused for, like, different narratives.
And let me tell you, the Odyssey and the Iliad have been aped even more.
Odyssey especially. Jesus Christ.
It's
pretty much any Western travel story is just taking the structure of the Odyssey.
It's an epic adventure.
Like, when people talk about how there's no new stories, they're talking about the fucking Odyssey.
To be fair, the ancient Greeks did a wonderful job incorporating many different story concepts into the Odyssey. You really do have, because you've got the Cyclops, you've got Circe, you've Scylla and Charybdis, you've got Calypso, you have, like, the Wrath of Poseidon.
Let's not act like you can't see the DNA of the Odyssey in many, many, many famous stories.
The hero's journey, man. This is the hero's journey. Albeit, he falls quite far before clawing his way back up. But this is an iconic story. This is an iconic tale, an iconic character. There's a reason why Ulysses was such a popular name when classical literature was in its renaissance in, like, the 17th. I know. In, like, the 17th and 1800s, you know? There's a lot of people named Ulysses. And why was Ulysses popular? Because Ulysses is the Roman translation of Odysseus, and the stories of Ulysses were incredibly popular.
And fuck the Greeks.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Ain't no one naming their kid Odysseus.
Maybe if you're Greek. But maybe not if you're...
Shout out to anyone in our audience named Odysseus.
Yeah. Good for you.
It's a man's name right there.
Yeah. Personally, I prefer Telemachus, but, you know, to each their own. So I feel like I suppose an important thing to note here is that we're going to flip over to Odysseus the character. So Odysseus the character is a character of literary tradition, right? Odysseus does not have much mythology associated with him outside of Homer's epic poems, right? Much like Hector, who we talked about before. He's not everywhere in mythology. This is not like a Hercules where there's a bunch of myths and like cult centers. I mean, not to say there aren't cult centers, but Hercules is a member of like the Greek pantheon of mythology. Odysseus is a character in the Odyssey, right? And the Iliad and the Odyssey are these poetic, like, it probably originally would have been told by way of poets memorizing thousands of lines of dialogue and then inserting their own portions of stories, right? So we attribute the Iliad and the Odyssey to Homer, right? Because as far as we know, Homer is the one who committed them down to paper. That does not mean that Homer's the one who created them. This is Homer's version, so insofar as we have decided to label it Homer's version. By the way, I've got both books here with me. This is the Robert Fagles translation. I've got a couple more translations around the room, but the Robert Fagles one is on the shelf right behind me, so it's the easiest to grab.
Man, you really do have the Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Book of Mormon right there.
You really do. I really do. Because I've also got Virgil's Aeneid here because we're going to mention it. But keep in mind, the version we have is likely not the same version that like was existent through most of antiquity, right? So this story would have been told thousands of times before Homer ever recited it to his audience, or it was written down and ascribed to Homer. Changes have happened. But we don't have a whole lot of other extant versions written down. Like, we don't really have other versions per se. So it's not as if we can see the changes that were made. But in the narrative of like traditional stories that are passed down from person to person rather than being written, it changes over time. Things become symbolic, become more literal. Like, it just depends on the person telling it and which parts they chose to memorize and which parts they chose to embellish, right? So with a grain of salt, everything we're going to be talking about, this is from the version that we attribute to the poet Homer, as translated by Robert Fagles in this case, or any of the other translations I have around the room per se. Most of the translations largely agree at this point, although there is some very interesting translation work coming out from Emily Wilson. I think it's one of the first times that the entirety of the Iliad and the Odyssey has been translated by a woman, like all together in one go. She's got some interesting opinions on how some of the words are translated and different ways to translate them based on like different experiences and stuff. And I do think that's absolutely fascinating. I do not currently have physical copies of her works. I have digital copies. I do intend to get physical copies. I just haven't bought them yet. So, preface aside, Odysseus. So Odysseus is the king of Ithaca. I mean, that titular, I'm the reigning king of Ithaca, right? We mentioned him in our last video on Hector and Paris, because while you might blame Paris for the start of the Trojan War, I would make the argument that in technicality, Odysseus shares part of the blame there, right? And it's not intentional, but Odysseus is the one who gives Helen's father the idea, the Oath of Tyndareus, right? And do you remember the Oath of Tyndareus? So, for those who didn't watch our last videos, the Oath of Tyndareus was a vow from all the suitors of Helen of Troy, right? They all vowed that whoever her father ended up choosing for her to marry, they would defend that marriage, right? And that oath is what allowed Menelaus and Agamemnon to call upon basically every single king in Greece and major hero to come fight on their side against the Trojans in the Trojan War. Because otherwise it would have just been Menelaus and Agamemnon and a couple hundred Spartans versus a fortified city with an army. And the story would have been very different, much shorter, different ending. Let's be honest. Would not have been nearly as epic, one could say.
Look more like a bug zapper.
Yeah. So there's some differing genealogy for the character of Odysseus. So in his fictional background, he is the great-grandson of the god Hermes, which is interesting because Odysseus is traditionally represented as a very sly and cunning character, right? Like, he's wise, but he's also sly and cunning. He's got these sort of attributes where he's able to sort of sneak around and come up with plans that are meant to sort of play upon the weaknesses of other people's mentalities. And he's very famous for it canonically. I mean, I once wrote an essay for class, right, where I made the argument in my essay that Odysseus is a trickster spirit in the Greek mythology, right? Like, he represents, he takes up the same space as a traditional, like, trickster spirit. And that really does feel the case when you look at, like, all of his stories. I mean, I think one of the most iconic ones is the Cyclops, right? And I don't necessarily feel the need to go in order about what we're going to be talking about. So, the story of the Cyclops. So, Odysseus and his men are searching for islands that have enough food that can be harvested to sustain them for the journey home. So, they've been at war for 10 years. The supplies they've taken with them, they're all depleted. However, Odysseus has managed to make it out of Troy with most of his men, right? So he's got a lot of men, very large fleet, very little food. So they end up on an island that is home to the Cyclops. Not just one Cyclops, but many Cyclops. However, they do not know that. They find a cave. The cave is full of sheep, right? And of course, there's, sheep for us, you know? Like, we can take these sheep and feed our men, right? Sustain us for the journey home. So those sheep belong to someone. They belong to Polyphemus, the Cyclops. Cyclops are sons of Poseidon. And so Polyphemus seals them in the cave with him, vowing that he will kill all of them. And Odysseus, when Polyphemus is sleeping, takes the club and, like, stabs him in the eye after sharpening the back end of it with the help of his men. And when Polyphemus is crying out for help, right? Because when they had been discussing, Odysseus had introduced himself as nobody. So when Polyphemus cries out for help from his Cyclops brethren, they say, "Who hurt you?" And he says, "It was nobody. Nobody hurt me." And of course, the other Cyclops are like, "Well, fuck off then. Why are you screaming? Like, go back to sleep. We don't want to deal with this because nobody hurt you." And of course, he sneaks away, unfortunately revealing at the last moment that his name is not, in fact, nobody. It is Odysseus.
How can one man be so smart but so dumb?
Exactly. It's kind of like, it's like a moment of pride almost, that he wants to brag that he has tricked Polyphemus and gotten away with it with only minimal deaths, right? But it really does doom him for the entire rest of the Odyssey. Like, this is the turning point of the Odyssey. Because if this had not happened, he would have just journeyed home, right? The distance between Troy and Ithaca is actually only about, like, a week to 2 weeks of sailing. It's actually not that far, to be honest. Like, I looked this up. It's not that far. However, it takes 10 years. Because Polyphemus goes to Daddy and says, Daddy, Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, hurt me and stole my sheep. And Poseidon goes, well, I could let him go, but then mortals might no longer fear me as they should. Like, this is a slight against me now that Polyphemus has summoned and invoked me as his father and god of the seas. He is in my domain and he has hurt my son. I have to take action. Like, it's not... Poseidon doesn't necessarily have the option not to. If he wants to continue being feared, he must take action. And that's kind of the role of the Greek gods, is not to be your best buddy, your best friend, right? They are calamities. They are above the actions of humans. And they're often capricious and not necessarily good-natured. Like, they're very ambivalent. They'll support heroes, but then they'll also do things like this. And to be fair, in the story of the Cyclops, Odysseus is not the hero. In no way is he the hero of this tale. I mean, he walked into a cave, saw a bunch of sheep that were relatively domesticated, and thought, oh, I'm going to kill them all and eat them, for my fleet. Which, arguably, I mean, he's searching out food for his crew. But when it comes time for stuff to get owned up to, he's like, oh, well, why don't you just trade me for this thing that has very little value to you, but a lot of value to me, and then it'll be all better. It's not a great look for him. I'm going to be honest. I love Odysseus. This is not a great look for him. This is not his starring moment. Not his shining star of amazingness. So there are some non-Homeric attributions of Odysseus' parents. And I think a lot of that largely comes from the fact that mythology kept evolving past the point of this story being recorded down. So there are other stories of his parentage to a bunch of different people. It's largely not super important. Some people say he was the son of Laertes, and so on, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is he's king of Ithaca at the beginning of the Iliad.
Such a nice mug to be drinking Diet Dr. Pepper out of.
Why are you attacking my mug? Not only did you come into my home and make multiple short jokes about me, but now you're attacking my choice of drinkware.
Look, I'm sorry. Despite your size, you always leave the short-hanging fruit for me.
It's low-hanging fruit,
Sorry,
you
low-hanging
bastard.
fruit.
At least mock me with the right turn of phrase. I'm being bullied. Actively and aggressively. So rude. So rude. So, an interesting thing to note about the beginning of the Iliad is that even though the Oath of Tyndareus is invoked, Odysseus does not immediately leap to joining the fleet, right? He does not want to go to war. I think, in my opinion, he largely views it as something that's sort of unnecessary. Like, this could be handled on a much smaller scale. All of Greece does not need to go to war.
This could be an email.
Exactly. This could be an email. Somebody missed the memo. So he decides that he's going to pretend to be an absolute stark raving fucking lunatic. Because he had heard an oracle that said that if he went to war, it would take him a really long time to get home. Right? That's what the oracle told him. If he went to war, it would be years and years before he would return home. And he had a wife, he had a son, like baby, you know. He did not want to go. So, in odds to make himself look stark raving mad, he started sowing his fields with salt. You know? Like literally salting the ground so that nothing could grow, in the hopes that others would see him as insane and report back. Unfortunately, Agamemnon has a rather smart idea, right? And he pays off Palamedes to take Telemachus, his infant son, and put it down right in front of the plow as he's sowing the fields with salt. And, of course, Odysseus, not being stark raving mad, veers away because he doesn't want to hurt his son, but that therefore reveals that he is of sound mind and knows what he is doing, right? If he was insane, he would have just run straight over his son. And so that's not a good excuse for him. So, unfortunately, he can't pretend to be nuts. But, you know, good on him for trying.
Look, don't you ever use Alzheimer's to dodge the draft?
Oh, absolutely. Obviously. So he had read he had an oracle, right? That it was going to be a very long time for him to return from war. And he didn't want to miss his son growing up. He didn't want to be away from his wife. Now, the problem was, normally, the other kings of Greece would be like, whatever, we'll just hate him forevermore, right? But, unfortunately, Agamemnon and Menelaus had also consulted an oracle, and their oracle had said that they would not win if King Odysseus did not fight on their side, which made it rather imperative that he needed to come with them, which meant that they really weren't going to stop at anything to get him to come along, which is kind of an unfortunate, where an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, except
Odysseus wasn't quite the unstoppable force, evidently.
No, no, he was not. So, it is unfortunate. So, as a result, he decides that he has to go. So he goes to Agamemnon, and he goes with a bunch of envoys from Agamemnon to then recruit Achilles, right? Because part of the prophecy was that they wouldn't win the war without Achilles, right? They needed Odysseus, but they needed Achilles. So, you have to have both. Achilles, his mother tried to hide him. She was like, go, hide, run away, go under the floorboards. Because she had gotten an oracle.
Yeah, I feel like oracles are the problem here.
So, Thetis, Achilles' mother, had gotten an oracle that her son had either 2 life outcomes, right? He was either going to live a very long and fruitful life, or he was going to die very young. And as you know, we've already covered Odysseus, or we've already covered Achilles. Which way do you think that that went?
Dying very young.
I mean, to be fair, I do admire the way that Achilles chose to hit. He did pull a Tequila Joseph on Odysseus. and much like the guards who saw through Tequila Joseph, Odysseus also saw through Tequila Achilles. It was like, that is not a woman. However, he did it by finding the hidden weapons under her dress. His dress. Their dress. So, unfortunately, we now have Agamemnon, Menelaus, Achilles, and Odysseus.
Only half of them wanted to be there.
Well, I don't know if Helen's husband's brother really wanted to be there, to be honest. I feel like that's more of a filial, sort of brotherly piety thing, rather than actually wanting to go to war over your husband's wife getting stolen from him. Because, like, in theory, no offense, but like I feel like there are a whole lot of Greeks in myth who would just be like, well, get a new wife, you know? But like, who am I to judge?
Look, isn't the entire point of the Iliad that a lot of bad things happen when people's pride starts getting really high?
Yes. So yeah. Pride. Beware, pride goeth before the fall. So, throughout the entirety of the Iliad, right, Odysseus is one of the trusted generals of the Achaean force. The Achaean force is the name for the Greek force. He's also typically the one who's there to question stupid decisions on behalf of Agamemnon and Menelaus and other commanders. He kind of sits there and he's wise counsel. He comes up with really some very good plans. And also is there to go, should we be doing that?
Imagine that the guy that immediately called out the war as being kind of stupid was the smartest one in the room.
You would think. And then proceeded to be canonically the dumbest person in the room very little later.
How can one man be so smart but so stupid?
Yeah. So Odysseus, for the large part of the Iliad, is often responsible for keeping the peace in camp, conducting negotiations, being a part of negotiations with the Trojans, and often taking to the field as well to fight with the men. For example, he is one of the people who tries to persuade Achilles to return to combat after Briseis is taken from Achilles by Agamemnon. To which, good on you, dude. I would have just told Agamemnon, get fucked and sailed away. Yeah, to be honest, like, no offense, but Achilles was being such a baby. You're like, oh, I can't have the woman that I want to fuck? Let me just go cry in my tent for months. I mean, it's not months, but you know what I mean. Unnecessary drama. So, remember we talked back to Hector and he proposed combat, like single combat with the Greeks as a way of sort of bridging the war and perhaps coming to an understanding? Well, Odysseus is one of the people who does volunteer to fight against him eventually. But he's not the one who's chosen. Ajax is. We talked about that before as well. However, Odysseus then does participate in a night raid meant to kill Rhesus because it was told that...
Rhesus, beat him up, beat him up, beat him up, beat him up.
Well, because there was, say it with me now, an oracle. Say it with me now, an oracle.
Look, guys, nothing good ever comes out of oracles.
So the oracle had said that if the horses of Rhesus were to drink from the Scamander River, that the city of Troy could not be taken by the Greeks. So they had to kill him before his horses got to the river to drink. Which meant killing him at night, and Odysseus participated in that. So, good on Odysseus. So after the death of Patroclus, which is our next major kind of event, Odysseus is one of the people who is sent to counsel Achilles. He tries to persuade Achilles to let the Greeks themselves eat and rest rather than follow him back into like this rage-fueled like berserker battle. So like when Patroclus is killed, Achilles doesn't even want to rest. He just wants to keep fighting the Trojans without stopping. And Odysseus is like, dude, take a chill pill. Calm down. Breathe. The men can't keep up with you. Like, they cannot keep throwing themselves into battle like this. And also, we need to hold funeral games. Right? We need to honor his death bury his body, etc. We can't just leave this to go. You can take your revenge after. Let's observe our traditions first. So Achilles does agree because Odysseus is a charismatic speaker and one who evidently is pretty good at talking to people, as we've seen so far. And during these funeral games, Odysseus does have a wrestling match with Ajax the Greater and a foot race with Ajax the Lesser. Both of the Ajaxes, which is kind of fun.
Would you name yourself after a soap brand?
I think it's the other way around. He does not win the wrestling match, but with the help of Athena, he does win the foot race. So keep in mind that the entire time that the Trojan War is going on, right? This is the gods' playground. Like the gods are largely behind this war, right? They have each picked champions, they've picked sides. So Athena has chosen Odysseus as her champion, right? So she aids him, shows up periodically, helps him out with stuff, helps him brainstorm, gives him that little kick in the pants he needs sometimes. So this is, through the grace of Athena, he manages to win the foot race against Ajax the Lesser, right? Good accomplishment. It's always good to win a race in a funeral games. Like, good honor. When Achilles is slain in battle, right? Odysseus and Ajax are the ones to retrieve his body and his armor. Now, Achilles' mother says that his arms will go to the bravest of all of the Greeks, but only 2 people dare to claim that title. In any case, regardless of who claimed the title and what the outcome of the fight is, Odysseus is the winner of the fight against Ajax, and is actually driven mad by Athena in his humiliation, because he was so desperate to win, and didn't, which is unfortunate. So Ajax then kills himself with the sword that Hector gave him after their duel. If you remember back to the Hector video, we talked about the fact that Ajax was given the sword of Hector at the end of this duel that didn't really come to a satisfying conclusion. So following this, Odysseus goes with Diomedes to fetch Pyrrhus, the son of Achilles, because the oracle says, and say it with me now, because the oracle says...
Stop listening to fucking oracles.
Troy cannot be taken without Pyrrhus. Pyrrhus is also called Neoptolemus. Odysseus actually gives Achilles' armor to his son, right? So
Good guy.
originally, the oracle had said that the battle could not be won without Achilles, right? Well, Achilles is dead. Now the battle could not be won without Achilles' son, Pyrrhus, who wears Achilles' armor. Is it still Achilles? Is this a ship of Theseus moment?
So far in the entirety of the Iliad, there have been 3 people that have claimed the name of Achilles. Achilles?
Mm-hmm.
Patroclus, dressed as Achilles.
Yeah.
And then his son.
Well, he doesn't claim the name of Achilles, but, you know. Now, unfortunately, this is not going to enable them to solve the war. They still need a couple more things. So, one, they have to go get the poison arrows of Heracles from Philoctetes, which is important. Philoctetes is, of course, a little bit pissed at Odysseus for abandoning him. But Odysseus manages to talk him out of this anger and persuade him to return with them and those poison arrows, the suave man that he is. And then, arguably, potentially, the most important and notable section of the entire Trojan War on the part of Odysseus. The horse. See, Odysseus has this genius idea. So, he has the Greeks construct a giant wooden horse, right? It's hollow inside. This will be important later. The Greeks then say that they are done, right? They say, we're done fighting. We're going to take our men and our boats and sail back to Greece. And they all sail away, only to, as soon as they are out of sight, duck around into coves and hide out of sight. While a bunch of the Greeks get in the horse, which they have left outside the gates of Troy, right? It's an offering of their defeat. So the Trojans, of course, see the horse, and they're like, ooh, a horse. Because what are Trojans if not horse girls? And they pull the horse inside the city to celebrate their victory against the Greeks. And what do the Greeks inside the horse do? They wait until the cover of night. And then they come out of the horse and set the entire city on fire, working their way through it, killing everyone who opposed them.
You know, that's illegal under the Geneva Conventions.
Yeah, well, the Geneva Conventions didn't exist. So yeah, thus ends the city of Troy, the Trojan royal family, the Iliad.
And no one was tried for war crimes. See, history really is written by the victors.
Yep. Helen goes back to her husband, according to some versions. And that's it. Now, of course, there's a slight deviation here to my comment that ends the House of Troy, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So now all that's left to do is for Odysseus to take all of his people and all of his shit and sail back home. It's been 10 years.
There and back again.
A Hobbit's Tale by Odysseus S. Baggins. A Hero's Tale by Odysseus.
You know, just because I brought up The Hobbit, I gotta say, Tolkien took a lot of inspiration from a lot of shit. The Hobbit is definitely taking inspiration from the Odyssey. I think even The Hobbit even has Cyclopses.
No, he has trolls.
Sorry, trolls, those trolls, but they
fulfilling
that same purpose. I'm pretty sure they get out of it with a little, like, Bilbo trickery, like Odysseus style, too.
So, and on that note, that is the end of Troy Story.
End of book 1.
End of book 1. Let's start book 2. Well, okay. In technicality, it is not actually the end of book 1. So the book 1 actually ends with the death of Achilles. No, the death of Hector, sorry. Mm-hmm. The book 1 actually ends with the death of Hector. We talked about it before. We read some of, like, the literal last lines of, like, Hector dying. So the everything after Hector's death occurs at the beginning of the Odyssey. And the fun thing about the Odyssey is that largely the Iliad is narrated as sort of like the Iliad, I don't know how often you've read this, but it's largely sort of a third-party perspective on what's happening. There's so many characters, you're not really reading it from any one character's point of view.
I've never read the Iliad, but I've heard like enough video essays and looked at enough, like read enough analysis of the Iliad to know like.
Yeah, so it's not first person. Like you're not watching it over it from like Odysseus's perspective or Achilles' perspective even. It's kind of up in the air, right? But the Odyssey is slightly different. So the Odyssey in some ways sections of it read as if they are narrated by Telemachus, telling of the things he has heard, right? And if we remember back to 20 minutes ago, Telemachus it's Odysseus' son. He was an infant when Odysseus left for war. It's now been 10 years to the start of the Odyssey. So he's 10 point something old, 10 and a half years old or so. And so he's growing up without his father.
Last time I saw Daddy, he almost ran me over with a tractor.
and the thing about the conflict of the Odyssey, right, for Telemachus and Penelope, is that up until the end of the Trojan War, they know where Odysseus is, right? He's in Troy fighting, right? No one else has returned from the war, per se. Like, the war is still going on. They hear when the war ends, right? Like, they would have heard. So, in theory, they should know, like, they know that he should be back within a couple of months, at the latest. Do you know what I mean? Now, see, what happened was he did not get back within a few months. And canonically, so there's kind of two parts to the Iliad, is you have the section that's following Telemachus and Penelope, right, living in Ithaca, and then you have the section that's following Odysseus.
You mean the Odysseys of the Iliad?
Sorry, the Odyssey. You have the section following Odysseus. Now, what's happening in Ithaca, I can go over kind of really briefly right now up to the end, is that as the years pass, right, after like a year or two, it becomes the sort of thing where suitors come to seek Penelope's hand because women don't rule alone in Greece, right? Like she's thus far been ruling as sort of like her husband is just away at war and her son is like is like growing up, and so like she's not ruling, she's a regent, right? But a regent to a living husband. Now, so people think her husband is dead at this point. Like it's been years. So suitors come to seek her hand, right? And so she spends every day she weaves a funeral shroud. She makes a deal with the suitor. She said, I will pick one of you after I've weaved a funeral shroud and held the proper funeral arrangement. So every day she weaves a shroud, and every night she unravels it, right? Telemachus is growing up. The suitors some of them try to kind of pander towards him, but most of them don't. But the suitors are like living in their palace, eating their food, drinking their wine, kind of almost menacing Penelope and Telemachus this entire time, because they're sort of like an axe hanging over the family, right? And I've written papers about this because I've made the argument that, like, some of the suitors make the argument that, like, part of the reason why Penelope needs to remarry is because of, like, the Greek oikos, or, like, the family structure, right? Is you need a man of the house. And the royal family, the entire nation is part of the family of the royals, right? In sort of a metaphorical way, right? And so you need a man of the house. And Telemachus is too young, right? So whoever marries Penelope would be the new king. So tons of people really want to marry Penelope. But Penelope does not want to remarry because she loves her husband and does not want to believe he's dead, right? And Telemachus is getting visions of what his father's doing from Athena, you know? So, not that he knows for 100% sure that's what's happening, but essentially, this is the axe hanging over Penelope and Telemachus. The suitors want Penelope to remarry, and as the story goes on, they get progressively more and more angry about her not remarrying, right? So it starts to become a more and more dangerous situation for her. Now, Odysseus just really wants to go home. He really wants to go home. It's been 10 years. He had a son. He's missed 10 years of his son's life. But circumstances intervene. He doesn't exactly just get to go home. So the first thing that happens is they try to conduct a raid on the land of the Sekhiones, and as a result, his crew is driven off ship by storms, right? This puts them out of their normal search path, right? And as a result, they don't know where to go to get food. So they visit the Lotus Eaters, right? Which, food! No, don't eat that food. Lotus fruits are essentially a trap, right? If you eat them, you can never leave, right? Percy Jackson reuses this. Actually, Percy Jackson 1-for-1 reuses almost every single thing in the Odyssey over the course of the first 5 books.
First 4 books, really. The 5th book's kind of different.
Yeah, you're right. The 5th book's kind of different. Yeah. But, like, the first 4 books.
If anything, the 5th book's a little weird. Like, if I remember my
Percy Jackson books... the 5th book.
No, I like the 5th book, but I think this might have been intentional. The first 4 books are written pretty much as, like, piecemeal retellings of the Odyssey, and the 5th book's just about a big war, and I think it's the only book where you see perspectives other than Percy's.
It might be. It's been a long time since I've read.
Which is very reminiscent of the Iliad.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read Percy Jackson. But, like, for example, you meet the Cyclops in Percy Jackson, Scylla and Charybdis show up, etc. I think they even end up on the Isle of Calypso.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the second book is literally an homage to the
Sea of Monsters. Yeah. So, they're blown off course. They meet the Lotus Eaters, and then they get captured by Polyphemus. And obviously, this is not great. So, our little Cyclops story from earlier goes through. Now, unfortunately, so as a result of being blown off course by Poseidon, they take a respite with the god of the winds, Aeolus, right, on his floating island. And they ask for Aeolus's help, and Aeolus says, okay, I will give you this bag. This bag contains all of the winds except for the west winds. This bag contains the north, south, and east winds, because you need to go west. So you will be allowed the wind that will send you in the direction you need to go. It will cage all the other winds, right? This is a deviation from Epic the Musical. So in Epic the Musical, he gives him the winds of the storm in the bag. But in this, it's the other 3 winds, right? From the other 3 corners of the world. So, and, you don't want to open that bag. And then what happens, Nick Nack?
They open the bag. If I remember, it wasn't Odysseus that did that. Though.
No, it's his men. Odysseus knows not to open the bag, but it's his men. His men open the bag because they think that it contains treasure because it was a gift from the gods. And so all the winds come flying out, and just as they've sighted Ithaca. Like, they can see Ithaca. The winds force them off-site to a completely different section of the ocean. Unfortunately, they try to beg Aeolus to help them again. And he basically says, no. Like, you squandered the chance I gave you. I gave you one directive. Do not open the bag until you are home. And you fucked up. Right? So then they meet the Laestrygonians, which are cannibalistic giants. Which is... Unfortunately, here we've got the major whittling point, is that he's got a bunch of ships, right? And then he meets the Laestrygonians. And then it's just him and his ship. There are no more ships except for his ship. Because they were all eaten by the cannibals.
The real tragedy here is that, like, 95% of the male Ithacan population is gone.
Yeah. No, I do. Here's the thing. I genuinely feel bad for his crew, right? Because he managed to get them through war relatively unharmed. And then, through a series of unfortunate events directly related to his own stupidity, they all die on the journey home. It's very unfortunate. As it's quite a tragedy, to be honest. So, the Laestrygonians have eaten everyone except for him and his ship. So, escaping from the Laestrygonians, he lands on the Isle of Circe. Right? And at the Isle of Circe, they go looking once again for food because they're still out of food. And she turns his men into pigs in a bid to protect herself and her nymphs from being attacked by them. Right? Because men on ships sailing around looking for food often become raiders. So she's had a lot of experience with this, so she turns them into pigs. Which is...
I mean, is that unreasonable given that the story started with them raiding somewhere?
No, I don't think that's unreasonable. In fact, I think that's perfectly reasonable. And then the gods are still involved in our story here. This is important to note. Athena's kind of fucked off. She was not happy after the Cyclops encounter. She thinks it was incredibly stupid of him to reveal who he was. Which, yeah, stand your ground, girl. It was. I agree. However, Hermes decides that he will come and help Odysseus. His great-grandson, according to some retellings.
Find out if I have another pack of nothing.
How's that going for you?
I'll do it later.
So Hermes gives him holy moly. I'm sorry, that's the epic version. Hermes gives him moly. It's an herb that, in theory, it will make him resistant to Circe's magic temporarily, so that he can confront her properly. She, of course, seeing a man who is stronger than her, in theory, becomes desperately attracted to him. As all women do, apparently.
Not many men on that island, so...
No. So she does agree to release his crew. However, he and his crew may actually stay on the island for an entire year, feasting and drinking. And eventually, his men convince him to leave for Ithaca. So, for those of you who are big fans of Epic, we've got a little bit of there's a little shift here between the story for... So, Epic the musical really emphasizes the love story between Odysseus and Penelope. However, in the original story, he does stay here for a year in a romantic relationship with Circe. Like, his men have to actively convince him to go home to Ithaca after a year.
The never once has he cheated on his wife thing is only true in Epic.
Yeah. So we don't hold to that. He has many children by many women, according to myth. But yeah, it is his men who have to convince him to return to Ithaca. So Circe gives them the instruction that she can help them get home by directing them to a prophet she knows that could help them get home. Only problem is, the prophet happens to be dead. So they have to journey to the underworld to summon the spirit of Tiresias to give them advice. During that journey, he meets his mother, who has died while he is away. And it's the first time he gets any information about his wife and his son. What he learns is of the greed of the suitors, and because of this, he is kind of spurred in his desire to get home. He also talks to some of his fallen companions from the war.
So, like, let's not... Like, whenever... Like, Odysseus can never complain about how long he was gone. He spent a year...
Just wait till we get to Calypso. So... He returns to Calypso's island following his small trip to the underworld, and she tells him that they need to avoid the land of the Sirens and then journey between Scylla and Charybdis to get home, right? So they do manage to kind of successfully skirt around the Isle of the Sirens. In Epic the Musical, they actually have a big confrontation with the Sirens. It's not as big in the actual book. And then they have to row directly in between Scylla and Charybdis. Unfortunately, however, in the story, Scylla does drag the boat towards her and does eat 6 of the men on board. So we're down another couple people. Getting real light on crew here. They then land on Thrinacia. And Thrinacia they were warned about by Circe. It was the next island in their journey home. And they were told not to hunt down or hurt anything on this island. Right? It would be very bad for them. And Knick-Knack, do you know the reason why it would be very bad for them?
If memory serves, something to do with the gods.
Yeah, that's a real good bet. This island is populated by the cattle of the sun god, Helios. And
that's right.
They hunt down a bunch of them. And then Helios goes crying to Zeus and says, "You had better punish them, or I will take the sun and move it to the underworld." And Zeus says, "Okay."
Hades says, No, please.
Zeus says, "Okay."
Please let him off.
Zeus casts down a thunderstorm and drowns everyone in the crew except for Odysseus, leaving Odysseus alone to wash ashore on Ogygia, which is the island where Calypso resides.
And we were denied vacation resort Hades.
We really were. Now remember how it takes him 10 years to get home, right? Well, we subtract 1 year for the year that he spent with Circe, because that doesn't count. Now, how many years do you think we subtract for Calypso? So we're at 9 now.
Another decade.
7 years.
Almost.
Yep. So let's in reality, let's be honest here. It took him 2 years to get home, not 10. So he stays with Calypso for 7 years. However, in this case, he is not making the choice. He is compelled by her to stay, and does not escape until Hermes orders her to release him. Which, it took you 7 years to order her to release him? My guy? I thought you were on Odysseus' side.
Look, he found that shit kind of funny. Impropriety.
Yeah. So, he builds a little ship and sails off. Only to almost immediately be shipwrecked. And then wash up on the Isle of the Phaeacians, who had their king Alcinous. Now, after hearing his story, Alcinous agrees to help Odysseus. They take him in a boat at night while he is asleep to a secret harbor in Ithaca. And then as he arrives in Ithaca, he finds the hut of one of his former slaves. Slave is the way that this is translated, but the slaves in Greece are not the same. We've talked about this before. Slaves in ancient Greece are not the same as chattel slavery of the 15 to like 1800s, so keep that in mind. When I say slave, it doesn't mean the same thing. So this is Eumaeus, the swineherd. And he actually meets Telemachus as he's returning from Sparta. You know, looking all 20 years older, covered in shit. It's not good. Athena disguises him because she's finally kind of come back to him and been like, "I'm sorry." Well, no, Odysseus has been like, "I'm sorry. I was a bitch. I was stupid."
You're right, that was dumb.
Yeah. So the only person who actually recognizes him in his disguise when he returns home is his dog, who's still around after 20 years. Argos, the best pup in all of Greek mythology.
I call bullshit, because if that dog was like Odysseus's like family dog that he had a lot of attachment to, that dog was not a brand new pup. But for it to survive 20 years while being as unkept as it apparently was, that dog absolutely was not that close to Odysseus. That dog was freshly born the day Odysseus set off.
Nope, that dog was like 30 years old.
Bullshit.
Wouldn't you want your dog to accompany you for 30 years?
Yes, that's why I call bullshit.
So we then flip to kind of Penelope, who's given an ultimatum to the suitors. She says, anyone who can string my husband's bow, she presents his bow, and shoot through 12 axes will be the new king, and I will marry him, right? Will be the new king, sit down on the throne, and rule with me as his queen. Fun fact here, for those of you weapons buffs, his bow is something called, I think it's a palintos bow, but essentially it's a double recurve bow. The bow itself kind of looks like this, and then you have to physically bend the ends backwards to the point where you can string it. In this case, in general, so this bow was given to Odysseus as a gift, and he's the only person who is able to string this bow. It takes the strength of like many men to even attempt. Some people estimate a draw weight between like 150 and 500 pounds, right? And I would say you're probably going on the sort of upper scale of that, because think about mythological exaggeration, and also if you think about European longbows and recurve bows, you can get bows with a draw weight of up to like 150 to 200 pounds, like even in like history. So you're probably looking on the upside of that, probably like the 200 to 600 pound mark is where you're looking, but it's an insanely large draw weight, right? And it's one of the only ways he can do it is like by heating up the wood under fire and then putting like his whole body into it. Like, the suitors are not doing this. And also the axes have holes in the head because axes have holes in the heads at this time in history. So there are actually holes. He's not shooting the arrow through the metal of the axes. There are holes. They're lined up. Let's make this a little bit more realistic here. We're not shooting through metal. But yeah, so he's string this bow, shoot through. But the interesting thing about this is, if you were to string the bow and shoot through all the axes, your arrow would pierce Penelope where she sits, killing her. Bit of a double-edged sword there. Good for her. Good for her. Now, so he, as the stranger that comes into his palace, easily wins the contest and then proceeds to slaughter the suitors. One by one, hunting them down like dogs.
The story ends as it begins, with the human rights atrocity that the international community would frown at.
We know these halls, the odds can be tilted. You don't think I know my own palace? I built it! Which is possibly the most metal line in that entire fucking musical. So yeah, he slaughters them with the help of Telemachus and a couple of his servants, but it's mostly him. Kind of tells the serving women and everyone else to clean up the corpses, and then has them hanged, because it can't get out that he did this, right? Because these men come from like all over. It's not just men from Ithaca, but it's men from all over. It cannot get out into the world that he is the one who slaughtered so many men.
Imagine if the United States rounded up all of its diplomats from around the world, like all the foreign diplomats within the country around, and just systematically slaughtered them.
Well, yeah, so the reason why it can't get out that he's done this is because it's a huge violation of, like, Greek hospitality traditions and cultures.
Think?
Like, this would actively declare Ithaca at war with, like, multiple other city-states. Like, this, like, it cannot get out. So, like I said, he even hangs the servants who help him clean up, right? It's not good. And then, you know, we've got the sweet little thing where he's like, where Penelope tests him to see if it's really him by ordering him to move the bow, and he knows that he can't because he carved that bed, or moved the bed, and he can't because he carved that bed and one leg of it is made from an actual living oak tree. And then she's like, this is my husband. I finally accept you. So Odysseus and Telemachus the next day go to visit his father Laertes, right, in the country, and it has gotten out what he did to the suitors, and the citizens of Ithaca follow him down the road, planning to kill him, to avenge their sons and those others who were killed by him. But Athena and Zeus intervene, and the people are persuaded to make peace. So not only did he kill most of their men in war, but when he came back, he killed the ones who didn't go to war. I think it'll be a very female-heavy economy for a while.
I don't know about you, but I would personally consider Odysseus to be a war criminal, terrorist, and quite possibly one of the the Geneva Conventions were written with Odysseus in mind.
Yeah, you figure. So, fun fact. There is actually a lost third epic. This is not the end of the story. So, we do not have any complete written versions of this, but there was a third story in this epic called the Telegony. And the Telegony followed Telemachus. It was the story of his last voyage to the land of the Thesprotians, where he married Callidice, right? And so Odysseus would return home to Ithaca, leaving his son with Callidice, ruling Thesprotia, right? And then his son there, Polypoetes, met Telegonus, his son, with Circe. And then they also met Telemachus. So the Telegony tells of the story of his children after a bunch more fucking around and fighting, and after he dies. But we don't know much about the Telegony. It's been mentioned by other authors, but we have no extant complete versions of the Telegony. We don't even have large chunks of the Telegony. Like, we literally just have other mentions from other authors about kind of the bare bones of what it was about.
Imagine if all the copies on the Earth of Return of the King just fucking went up in flames.
Yeah, and you had the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and then some author's notes of reviews from other authors later on about the Return of the King, and you knew that, like, it was about Aragorn.
But for some reason, like, Saruman's death is just never recorded.
Nope. Wouldn't that be funny?
It would be hilarious.
So I think at this point, we can probably move on to Circe. Before I touch on the Aeneid, because that's going to get into characterization, and I want to touch that last. So, Circe is the daughter of Helios and the nymph Perse, right? And this is why she knew not to kill the cows of Helios. You'd think other people would know not to kill the cows of Helios. Apparently, no. That's too intelligent. Too intelligent. So she is essentially what accounts to a witch in Greek mythology. She has sort of magical powers. She's able to turn his crew into pigs. When he lives with her for the year, she bears him multiple sons and potentially a daughter. So Latinus, Telegonus, Cassiophoon, Romos, Ardeus, and Antaeus. So these are all her children. There are some other stories about her. She actually comes up pretty often in classical literature, mostly because she's got stories outside of her stories with Odysseus. So she was the sister of the keeper of the Golden Fleece, according to the Orphic Argonautica. And then her other sister was Pasiphae, the wife of Minos, the mother of the Minotaur. Some other accounts have marked her as one of the daughters of Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft. And there are other versions of the story where historians have been able to tell that people have confused her with Calypso in antiquity and used their names interchangeably in some stories, because they have kind of they're both associated with Odysseus in a very similar way, but their personalities are distinctly different. So often, like, when the historians see her written very out of character, there's a decent chance that it actually was meant to be Calypso, right? So she lives on the island of Aia. Good luck spelling that. Nick, now, try and spell Aia for me.
A-E-A-E-E?
A-E-A-E-A.
See, that's like the direction I was going. I should have put an A instead of an E there.
Yeah.
I knew it was something like that.
Yeah. So the island is mentioned in the Argonautica. We say, according to that, it's somewhere south, but you can see the western coast of Italy in it. And that she was taken there by her father's chariot when he took his son to protect the Golden Fleece. Homer describes her as a goddess of dread with beautiful hair who speaks like a human. So she's human, but not quite. She is a demigod, not a demigod. She's like a minor deity. Circe during the Argonautica did partially participate, right, in the story. So she purifies the Argonauts after they arrive to her, and she's told that Medea murdered her brother to get them away. We talked about that version of the story where she chops up her brother and throws him into the water in hopes to distract her father from tracking them down, which is horrific. Circe, and of course Medea tries to lie to her, right? Tries to tell her that something else happened. And Circe is not fooled. But she basically says, "You're my niece. I won't kill you, but you can't stay here. You have to leave.
Helping you this once, and then I never want to see your ass again.
You have to leave. I will not stop you from leaving, and I will not hurt you, but you can't stay here. You have to go." Her myths also include how she fell in love with the sea god Glaucus. However, Glaucus did not love her back. He was in love with Scylla, and so she, in a very Athena-esque moment, she doomed Scylla to be a six-headed monster because she was in love with the man that was in love with Scylla, and he did not love her. That sucks. Absolute bullshit. Circe also turns several men into other animals across all of her stories. She falls in love with another man, a king of Latium named Picus, turns him into a woodpecker, and then his wife dies because she wastes away in mourning. There's kind of a trail of bodies here. You know?
Look, I haven't got much to say. Total queen for that gaslight gatekeep girl boss. Go for it.
I do think it's also perhaps important that in the Telegony, do you know? So in the Telegony, Circe marries Telemachus, Odysseus' son, and her son, Telegonus, marries Penelope, Odysseus' wife. And I do think that's a little interesting.
From what I've read of all the shit that comes after the Odyssey, it sounds like bad fan fiction.
You know what? I have never wanted to read a story more than I want to read the Telegony. I've genuinely never wanted to read something more than the Telegony. Because Circe getting married to her lover's son, her son getting married to her lover's mother, who was smoking?
This, when I read this, I was like, this just sounds like the worst of 90s Marvel with retconning and constant characters hooking up and breaking up.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. It's wild. I think now is probably a good time to bring up, because we're gonna mention her. So Circe indirectly appears in the Iliad. So Aeneas, possessing of apparently more intelligence than Odysseus, actually does skirt her island, not landing upon it. But as he does, he is able to hear the cries of the men who are her victims. The roars of lions that refuse to be chained, the grunts and groans of boars and bears, and the herds of wolves that howl and stun the ears of the sailors. So she is mentioned, but not directly encountered in the Iliad. Now, the interesting thing to note about the Iliad is, so this is not about Odysseus, this is not about Circe, but Odysseus is undoubtedly supposed to be the hero in the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? He is a hero in the Iliad, right? And he is a hero in the Odyssey, right? Despite all of the comments we've had about him being stupid and committing war crimes, he is a hero. You have to, this is his hero story. Now, and that is generally the Greek view of Odysseus. So Odysseus is a Greek culture hero. He's looked up upon as a good character, like a hero to emulate, someone to be proud of, and someone of that sort of caliber. That is not the case in the Aeneid. So the Aeneid is a pseudo-continuation of the Iliad and the Odyssey that was written by Virgil to essentially create a unified founding mythology for the story of Rome mythologically, right? And Rome claimed that they were descended from the line of Aeneas. Aeneas is one of the princes of the House of Troy who managed to escape with his father and his son, Ascanius and Anchises. Might be the other route. Anchises might be his father, Ascanius is his son, or it's Aeneas, Ascanius, and Anchises are the three who escape, right? They make it to Latium, and eventually they start what will, after the birth of Romulus and Remus, a little further down the line, become the founding of Rome, right? And Romulus and Remus, canonically the sons of Ares, right? Nursed by a wolf. Aeneas was the son of Aphrodite, right? So it's this lineage of Aphrodite coming through to Rome and then joined by Ares. So in this story, Odysseus is not a culture hero. Odysseus is the villain of this story because he is the one who comes up with the idea for the wooden horse. He is the one who essentially creates the situation that leads to the burning of Troy. So you've got Greek culture hero who, despite committing active war crimes, is still a culture hero. And then you have, because he committed active war crimes, he is the villain. Explicitly the villain. The bad guy. And Circe is also explicitly the villain, the bad guy.
Genocide against the Trojans? Are we the baddies?
I mean, yeah. That's pretty much it. Are we the baddies? Yes, you are. You very much are. So both figures had cults in antiquity. We found shrines and such that reference them. And then both Circe and Odysseus have been sort of ubiquitously mentioned constantly in the post-classical literature. So Dante Alighieri encounters Odysseus in the very bottom of hell because he comes from this Roman tradition, right? So he finds Odysseus and Diomedes in the 8th ring of the 8th circle, right? The sins of malice, counselors of fraud, as a punishment for his participation in the Trojan War.
I love that.
What?
Odysseus sitting at the bottom layer of the Christian hell.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, so Dante Alighieri did not have access to the Iliad and the Odyssey. Dante Alighieri lived at a time where he only had access to the Aeneid. So his depiction of who in the classical world belongs at the bottom versus the top is heavily influenced by Roman authors and by Virgil, who was very prolific and who he absolutely had a giant hard-on for. As, you know, by the fact that Virgil is the one who is leading him around. You know what I mean? In modern poetry, there's too much. Literally too much. I think a really famous one is Lord Tennyson's poem, Ulysses, from 1842, which kind of puts him as like this aging king who's perfectly content to just sit on his throne, and then eventually just gathers a band of old comrades to sail beyond the sunset when he's sort of done being king, right? Like leaving his kingdom to his son. Novels all over the place. James Joyce wrote Ulysses. You know,
pretty sure that's the version I read of it when I was in a long time ago.
So that's the one that tells like a modern Dublin businessman?
No, never mind then, no.
Okay. So I think what you're confusing here, so you've read a version of it that uses the name Ulysses.
Yeah, it takes the Roman.
Yeah. So that could just be a different translation.
Yeah.
Like if you translate via like a Roman story, it might just use Ulysses, right? Because there are a number of things that have been written with the name Ulysses, but is not exactly. So James Joyce's tells of the life of a normal Dublin businessman, and it parallels his day to Odysseus's 10 years of wandering, right? Like using literary devices. I've never read it, but I know a lot of other people have. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, huge. We already talked about that.
4 retellings of the Odyssey in a row.
Yeah, there's an ungodly amount of TV series and films. Was it recently? I was watching something. Okay, this is why I was doing it recently. So recently, I watched some movies with one of my friends, right? And one of the movies I watched was The Road to El Dorado, right? You remember that animated movie?
Yeah, I watched like 60% of it.
Okay, so you remember the villain, Sekhie Khan.
Yes.
Yeah, so Sekhie Khan is voiced by Armando Assante, right? And Armand Assante plays Odysseus in the 1997 miniseries, The Odyssey, which is one of the more well-known versions of The Odyssey. Music, epic. And that's not the only thing. There's plenty of other things, but...
Let's be honest here. When this is coming out in the year of our Lord 2025, there's going to be 2 versions of the Odyssey that are retold in the modern day that people are going to be talking about. Epic and the upcoming Christopher Nolan Odyssey.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I love Epic. This feels like a good place to tackle it. So, I've seen all of Epic. I've heard all of Epic. And when I say I've seen it, I mean I've watched a lot of the animatics. Like, almost all of the animatics I've probably seen. So I've been following it since the Cyclops saga released. And I've caught most of the releases same day. I've been at the watch parties for several of them, like in the comments. I think I introduced you to it a little bit later.
Yes.
Yeah. But you were there when Circe saga came out, right?
Yes.
Because you really liked the Circe saga. Yeah. So yes, we are both well versed in Epic. I've peppered in a few references here and there. Maybe more than Nick Knack has caught. I don't know if he caught all of them. I think I've peppered in at least 4 or 5 at this point.
Got a good chunk. I've only ever listened to Epic like in order, even any one of the sagas, like 2/3 of the time. Like I got like 2/3 in before I had to stop.
That's fair. So the story of Ulysses and Circe, right, on the Circe side, has been retold a number of times throughout kind of the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Nathaniel Hawthorne had a 3rd section of his Tanglewood Tales was dedicated to Circe's palace. And then her turning men into beasts sort of became a literary device that was used a lot afterwards, right? Like the crossover between the human and the beast, because the Circe intimated that these men were turned into the beasts that they resembled most, right? So it's not that she said, I'm going to turn your men into pigs. It's that she fed them a potion or cast magic that would turn them into a beast. And the beast they were turned into was determined by, like, their inner sort of personalities and such, right? That's why you get lions, wolves, bears, pigs. That's why you got a bunch of different animals on the island.
Very spirited away.
Well, so here's the thing. This inspired something in literature called the reasoning beast literature, which is used by, arguably, this actually might be one of the most prolific things to come out of Odysseus and Circe in all of literature today, because reasoning beasts are then used throughout the post-classical tradition until modern day in extensive nature, right? Like, I'm sure you could name at least 5 different times.
Right off the top of my head, Zelda Link to the Past does one of those.
Yeah, like Niccolo Machiavelli wrote a poem about the animal within the human. I mean, Giordano Bruno, who wrote in Latin, wrote about it. Antoine Jacob, and so on. They're like literally uncountable amounts of people.
There are 2 wolves inside me.
Yes. One is Circe, and the other one is Odysseus. One commits war crimes. The other one commits war crimes. I'm kidding. Another huge kind of inspiration from specifically Circe and Odysseus, or...
Circe doesn't commit war crimes. She commits castle doctrine.
True. Another specific thing that stems out of Odysseus and Circe, or Odysseus and Calypso stories, is the idea of like sexual politics that have transmitted down into like stories since. And there have been multiple books written that have kind of cited Circe as like an influence, or an interpretation is given to some part of her sort of myth. But yeah, I don't think beyond that it's super important to go into a ton, because arguably I would make the comment that Circe has actually sparked more literary connections than Odysseus has, simply on the fact that Odysseus and Circe became the blueprint for a bunch of different literary devices, which then go on to spawn like hundreds of works, even completely unconnected. Like some of the people who were probably writing about the idea of beasts with reason aren't even thinking about connecting it back to Circe and the Odyssey, but in reality, that is where that comes from. Like that is one of the first places that it's truly mentioned and talked about a whole lot.
I think that's just how I feel about Western travel stories and the Odyssey in general. They might not...
Yeah, people don't always
look into the Odyssey.
Yeah.
But the Odyssey comes out just in how we think about travel stories.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, right off the bat, we're going to start with Odysseus. What class are you thinking? I bet you got a good guess on this.
So I've got 2 arguments for this, right? Is that because of the Odyssey, I would say rider, right? But because of the Iliad, I could see saber.
Interesting. That's not the direction I thought you were going to go with the second one.
Well, he doesn't fit a berserker for what he does in the Odyssey. Oh. Yeah, but, like, that seems too obvious. And that's also, like, I associate Odysseus, here's the thing. I associate Odysseus with his bow, with, like, kind of the ending of the Odyssey, because if his bow is in Ithaca, he doesn't have it with him in the Iliad.
And that's fair. It's just, I'm going to tell you now, it's not an archer. He's not an archer.
Okay.
But I thought that's where your brain was going for a second.
Here's the thing. In the Iliad, it's pretty much almost explicit that unless you are an archer standing on the back lines being told to shoot someone, like, and here's the thing, everyone shoots somebody, right? Like, almost all of the characters get an opportunity to use a bow in the Iliad. But most characters also spend a lot of time on the ground using either lances or spears or swords. Right? Spears or swords. Right? So based on, like, combat in the Iliad, you can't necessarily say archer, because the whole bow thing is the end of the Odyssey, and obviously he didn't have the goddamn bow for 20 years. You know? So, like, it would, I'm gonna be honest, it really would not make sense if he was an archer as a primary class, because he didn't have the goddamn bow for 20 fucking years. It's the whole point of the Penelope part of the story.
Okay, but I'm pretty sure most Fate archers spend longer than 20 years without a bow.
Yeah, some go their entire lives. But yeah, so I'd probably say, I think maybe, if I didn't understand how rulers worked, I would have said ruler. Like maybe like 2-3 years ago, before I had a more nuanced understanding of ruler, I might have said ruler based on the Iliad.
Have I finally beaten into that rulers are saints and everything else is just kind of really, really weird rule breaks?
Yes. So it's rider, saber.
You are right about the rider.
Okay.
Like, it is, that was the low-hanging fruit there.
Full disclosure. My guess for Circe is caster.
Your guess is also right there. So okay. But we'll get there when we get there.
All right.
So meet Odysseus. All Might.
Oh! Ooh.
Oh no, this is.
I think I just made the same noise that Calypso made upon seeing Odysseus. I'm kind of loving the mech suit. Like, really loving the mech suit. I don't know what the inspiration for it is. I'm sure you will tell me. But I'm loving the mech suit. I'm also just... a slutty little boob window. You know, like Achilles has, like, the thighs out.
Yeah.
Thighs out for God. Odysseus has tits out for God.
Look, I learned that you even love the boob window on Old Men after we watched Castlevania Nocturne.
Yeah. Because Juiced is... I'm loving the... Here's the thing. I feel like this is one of those situations where I look at it and I'm like, there is nothing here that to me is calling out Greek or archaic. It's just a really cool armor suit. You know what I mean? This is one of those situations that you didn't even attempt to make a reference. You just went the other way, but you did it really well. And I can appreciate just the absolute other way. You know what I mean?
So yeah, Odysseus is certainly rocking the sci-fi, like, approach to the gods that Type Moon does. You remember the giant mech gods.
Are they associating him with Hermes because he's the grandson of Hermes? Or great-grandson?
Kinda.
Or are they associating him with Athena more because he's the champion of Athena, essentially?
So the armor was a gift to him from Athena.
Okay, yes.
Who, you'll remember, is also a mech.
Yeah. You know what? I keep forgetting that in Fate, the Greek gods are, like, very mech. So it's not out of place that if you're...
Well, they're also gods. It's the funny thing about the Greek gods is they're gods, but at one time they were mechs.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. So it's like, for me, when I think of the Greek gods, I'm thinking of kind of like, you know, like...
And that's right.
You know? But I forget that this is the other option.
This is the other half of their lives.
And I like this option. I like the way that the Greek gods looked.
But you see, by the time of the Iliad, the gods are mostly not mechanical anymore, thanks to Altera.
Yes. Yeah.
But fragments of the old mechanical bodies have made their way around and have been gifted around. And so there's a not zero chance that Odysseus is literally wearing Athena right now. It's not fully expanded on, though, and Fate just calls the armor an embodiment of the protection of the gods.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oh my guy, the downfall.
So this will all be greatly important again later when we go over his abilities, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
But I just need to put forward a bit of explanation for sci-fi.
Okay.
There.
Yeah.
So as for Odysseus himself.
Oh my fucking god, okay.
He is very single-track minded, like one-track mind.
Mm-hmm.
He says he's going to do something, so he's going to fucking do it. That also makes him a bit of a social dunce. Fate actually will go the epic route and state that he did not, in fact, cheat on his wife.
Oh, okay.
Something he absolutely does in Greek mythology.
Well, but... I mean, think back to our discussion of Napoleon. Fate very much went with the culture hero route.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming that they're going with this very Greek culture hero, right?
Yeah.
The most positive take on the story.
This is not the coward war criminal Odysseus.
Yeah. Is my acceptance of this slightly... Did you expect me to accept this and just be like, okay?
I mean, I didn't expect it to be a Julius Caesar. At best, at worst, I thought you'd be like, this is a little weird.
Okay.
So, and that also means that pretty much everything from the Lost sequel, the Spanish opera of a Lost sequel,
telegony
is just
does
not
not exist.
canon to Fate.
Yeah, so the telegony does not exist. Okay. Does that mean? Oh, so he also didn't cheat with Calypso?
Yep.
But she
actually no, that's
him.
not confirmed.
Yeah,
that part's actually not confirmed.
Okay, I was gonna say
Circe is confirmed. Calypso is not.
Okay, because Circe was his choice in the story. Calypso is not his choice in the story.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could see the justification there being that, like, yes, he might have had relations with Calypso, but it was not consensual on his part. And therefore, does that really count as, like, actively cheating?
Yeah, we don't have Calypso and Fate yet, so we don't have a lot of answers as to what their time together looked like.
On that note, Calypso servant when? Sorry.
The reality is, he's actually kind of slow to realize that he's the object of affection to multiple women.
Unrealistic. Look at the way you look, my man. Even men would be in love with you.
Yeah, no, he does not realize that he's got, like, literal minor goddesses falling for him.
And major goddesses, obviously. Not even from the same pantheon.
Go to hell.
Excuse you, that's not the correct name for my particular underworld.
Go to fucking Hades. I don't even give a shit.
Also not the correct name.
I don't give a shit.
Did I not?
Did I stutter? He has a pretty big he has pretty big pride. It's a flaw of his.
Yeah.
Like, he's smart.
Yeah.
He's a planner, a strategist. But when he thinks he has a victory, he is a bit too confident in that victory.
And he probably doesn't like to admit when he's wrong.
Yeah.
Beware, pride goeth before the fall.
But he's also deeply loyal and takes the loyalty of others very seriously. He looks back on the deaths of his comrades with extreme sadness, and he feels great responsibility for them. And in the present, he is very well liked amongst the Greek servants and even the Trojan servants that are present.
Well, see, the Greek culture hero, it makes sense, right? Also, I don't think any of the Greek servants are people that he massacred or directly caused the death of. First of all. And then second of all, I mean, even with the Trojans, so he was one of the Greeks to always go out on a limb and volunteer to try to solve things in single combat, to try to participate in peace talks. I mean, he's the one who convinces them to kind of back off, hold the funeral games. Like, he agrees with the idea to return Hector's body to his father and kind of consolidate. Like, and also, I mean, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that like the heroes of Troy would also feel rather...
Because, like, think about who we have. We have Hector, who's just chill.
And he volunteered to fight Hector when Hector proposed it as a way to end the war.
Paris, who's having a very similar case of post-nut clarity regarding this war.
Yeah.
And he's even significantly more quick on the uptake on how not to get mauled by a rabid penth.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, for all of Odysseus is sort of like any flaws that are exposed, he like it's never doubted in the story that he is an intelligent person and he does have like a particularly tactical mind. It's just he makes mistakes, and the thing is he has to make these mistakes for the story to go as it does. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And some of the mistakes are not his fault. Like Calypso's island is not his fault.
It was his men that opened the bag of wind, not him.
Well, he didn't end up on Calypso's island for that. He ended up on Calypso's island
oh, yeah.
after his men killed the cattle of Helios, who he like they were told not to, right? So it's not all his fault. Some of it is, but the large part of it is not. But yes, the windbag is definitely his men's fault. Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to, we have the relationships, the lots of relationships here.
Oh my fucking god, we've got so many of these to go through. Okay, all right. The great hero Achilles. If you're our ally now, there's no one more reliable. Really? Really? I feel like Achilles was maybe not the most reliable the last time you spoke with him. I'm sorry. That's me being very pessimistic. All right. We both fought well. Isn't that right? Hector of the shining helmet. Anyways, let's have a drink. We both need a stiff drink. Yeah, I feel like him and Hector are very much like, this did not need to happen.
Let's think about it here this way. He and Hector were both on board with that fight.
Yeah,
like
just
one-on-one combat.
Done.
We decide how this goes.
It closes one eye after greeting him, and then makes a toast. 100%. Is that Prince Paris? I see, so that's how the heroic system works. What, Apollo? How bothersome. I get it now. Okay, so Achilles and Paris smiles broadly, patting them on the back. Yeah, I mean, they're companions. They show up a lot together. Penthesilea, you are beautiful as all... What's that, Hector? Don't ever say that word? What word? Nod of admiration. That's so valid. Jason, my cousin, have you gotten more determined since we last met? Beautiful. Oh, good. I see that you can smile now, Circe. Aw, that's a nice... I'm curious about their relationship to one another and what Fate says happened on the island. Because I'm assuming what Fate says happened on the island is much more similar to what happened in Epic the Musical, right? In that Circe might have tried to pursue him, but he did actively deny her, and so they didn't fall into bed together, and then she aided him, right? Is that...
Yeah.
Okay, so that's how Fate says it goes as well. So it's the same as Epic, right? Because in Epic the Musical, it very much, he's like, I have a wife, and I love my wife. And she's like, damn, I didn't know men could be that convinced of their love of their wife. I've never experienced that before, which is a telling condemnation of every other Greek man, but, Okay. Circe's niece? I do see a close resemblance. Very lovely. Oh.
Now I'm not gonna let this be lived down. Sekhie fucked up and called Medea Circe's aunt.
Shut the fuck up.
She wants to exclude that in editing. I won't let her.
Bold of you to assume I won't just edit this out as well.
Motherfucker.
Okay, so Charlotte Corday, how can I repay the great debt I owe you? No clue who that is. Canis, how about a drink? I have plenty I want to get off my chest about Poseidon.
I can tell you, Charlotte Corday, it's not going to make the line make any more sense.
Well, no. I'm sorry. I know who Charlotte Corday is.
You don't know
I
what
don't know the connection. Yeah. Sorry. Let me rephrase that. Okay, Jason and Canis both get a pat on the back. We mustn't, Europa. It's preposterous to even bring up the idea of having our two noble phantasms fight each other. Come again? You're asking because the young heroic spirits keep begging you to do so? And you want to grant their wishes? Oh, Europa. Okay. A giant robot? Oh, you're talking about my noble phantasm. What? You want your huge bear unit to go up against mine? What are you talking about?
Hey, it's 8 o'clock.
It is, in fact, 8 o'clock.
Murasaki Shikibu's on Raid Up.
Yes.
I got a notification on my phone.
Yep. I knew she was on Raid Up. Because Bizette just ended.
Ah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was completely distracted. Okay. I'm just gonna...
We're dealing with the important shit here, guys.
Yeah. Ooh! Tyra no Kagekiyo description. That's a fun one. I don't often get that one. Oh, damn. We really just called out exactly what day we recorded this.
Nah, because I think... did Murasaki start tonight? Because I get the notifications sometimes in there for things that didn't start today.
Murasaki started today, and Bizet ended.
Oh, yeah, and you started strategically putting your camera in front of the date and time.
Yep. Okay, so Leonardo da Vinci, Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Qin Shi Huang, Charles Babbage, and Cashin Koji. That's a lot of servants. You want to try to dismantle my noble phantasm? Ach, what are you talking about? For the love of science, what does it run on? No, no, no! That's the product of the Achaean engineering and the gods. Oh, a tactician from the east? I see. How intriguing. Does make me want to just put him and Zhuge Liang in the same room together. You know what I mean? Aias smiles with nostalgia. So I assume Penelope's not a servant, but we get...
Yeah, I assume that those are notes probably from the materials book.
Okay. I do appreciate these little notes about, like, the kind of, like...
The actions
expressions and stuff, because that does...
Whoever wrote the lines originally, because these aren't... these it's all voice acted in the actual My Room. Whoever wrote these lines was having a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Skills and abilities.
So Jason has said that Odysseus has a good shot at being the second most powerful in terms of the Greek heroes, behind, I believe, Heracles. He is
makes sense.
Almost certainly this is almost certainly a result of his armaments. He's not particularly strong and really only is exceptional in quality through his endurance and noble phantasm. Mm-hmm. But that armor he wears allows him to effectively empower all of his attacks and defend against really powerful attacks. He's even capable of temporary flight. His other strength is his raw cunning. He's possibly the greatest strategist in history as far as Fate is concerned. And if you feel underwhelmed by his abilities so far, well, some of this comes down to just his noble phantasms, of which he will have 3.
Okay. So, protection of the messenger god, that's because he's the great-grandson or grandson of Hermes, right? Mm-hmm. Makes total sense. Affection of the gods because of the favor of Athena. Yep, totally get it. Noble phantasm, Aegeus. Makes sense. Single-mindedness, so that's that's the, you know. See, this one mentions Calypso falling for him, but we don't know how that played out, so interesting. I do like the note about that's how he sees it, is just, he's fully devoted. It's just that, for some reason, he keeps encountering women.
Yeah.
Bitch, look at yourself. Look at the cunning general's epiphany, that makes sense, and then, I guess, divine body bounded field. So we've got noble phantasm, so Troia Hippos, which is the Trojan horse.
Yes, it's also a mech.
Okay.
It's a transformer that goes from a horse to a humanoid mech with lasers and awesome super robot shit.
So it's kind of like the Dinobots.
It moves... Do you remember Code Geass and how those mechs move?
Yeah.
It's a lot like those.
But it's kind of like the Dinobots.
A little bit. It's got a horse form and a humanoid form.
Yeah, so it's like the Dinobots.
The human form is called the Obliteration form.
It's like the Dinobots, guys.
Now, Fate's not going to claim that the Trojan horse was a literal fucking transformer during the Trojan War. What's happening here is that the wooden horse is being covered in the same armor that Odysseus is wearing, which allows it to become a mech.
Okay. So we've got Aegis, which is the defensive armament.
Yes, we've already gone over this extensively, so don't need to go over this again.
And then Penelope.
This is a noble phantasm that he can use on command. Odysseus can fire arrows of light without a bow. You'll see this most during his attack animations.
Whoever can string my husband's old bow and shoot through 12 axes cleanly.
Yes.
Yep. All right. I actually want to read the comments from the illustrator. Because I'm curious about kind of their... Because here's my question. Maybe someone in the comments will know this. Was he told to give it a mech flare? Likely?
Probably. Okay. Because it was Odysseus originally appeared in Atlantis, which is the... like the Lostbelt Atlantis, so a lot of mech shit going on already.
Yeah. Tactician and great man. Oh, yeah! By the way, one of my favorite things I forgot to mention about Odysseus, right? When he goes to reveal himself, he just drops Trow and is standing there fully naked with his bow. Like, Odysseus, home. Dick, out.
Literally. Literally came out dick out swinging.
Yeah, like, I always forget to mention that, but it's Odysseus, home. Dick, out. Okay, so... Oh. I lost an earring piece. Oh.
We're about to watch Sekhie lose her earlobe.
Well. Ow. They're fruits basket earrings. I'm sure you couldn't tell, but because they're so small. But I'll show you in a second. So these are the cat. The way that they're drawn in like fruits basket, the little chibis. Since it's come off, there you go. It just fell. They fall off sometimes because I can't. It's very hard to secure the earring on my own behind my ear. All right. Okay, so about the chest hole, which became a popular topic, I thought it would be. No, you gotta let me. I thought it would be necessary to have something like an exhaust vent for the pheromones that are emitted by his unmatched Chad energy. Pheromones! Oh my god! Thank you, Red Juice. I love you. They've literally only done 2 servants ever. I cannot wait to see Europa. I literally cannot wait. Oh my god, that's the greatest explanation ever. Like, holy shit, we have not seen a better explanation for anything in Fate than that. Like, we didn't get an explanation for why we get Achilles' thighs out. No. But you know what we get an explanation for? The pheromone vent.
When the artist is just as horny as Sekhie about the men.
Look. Red Juice was right. Red Juice, you are my god. I need to find you on every form of social media you have and follow you. You and me, same wavelength.
So we have a noble fan pattern animation. And this one is memed by everybody, including the game.
Bore in Oh, he's so pretty. He's so pretty. So he's much newer, right?
Yes, he came in about halfway through part 2.
Yeah. So pretty. I think my sound has been, like, turned down recently. Yeah. You know what he's gonna be on Rate Up next?
Him? Rate Up? I don't know. Next chance I get him might genuinely be the next 5-star free ticket. He is on those now.
Oh, look at that. It's on rails. Oh my god, I love it. This satisfies many things in me.
So I actually have a little bit more to go over with Odysseus.
Oh, this stuff? Lostbelt?
Yep. So Odysseus was not originally introduced as a servant. The first we ever saw of Odysseus, he was a living, immortal general of Zeus, active in the subjugation of the Atlantic Lostbelt. He waged a long war against an army of servants summoned to try taking down the Lostbelt before Chaldea could arrive. He'd ultimately end up being extremely successful, killing nearly all of the servants from proper human history, and eventually cutting off the flow of mana in the land to disrupt all future summoning within the Lostbelt. It's unknown exactly how many servants answered that call and were killed, but amongst them were every Argonaut to exist other than Medea and Jason. He managed to lure Heracles into a trap that resulted in Heracles' death. Of the surviving servants, most of them, for one reason or another, didn't fight in the battles. Off the top of my head, the only other confirmed surviving combatant was Drake, who would end up being cursed by Poseidon anyways.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, I remember that.
A very small force of, like, Raiko, Kentoki, and Medea amongst a handful of other servants managed to make it past him, but their force was very swiftly killed off because it was too small to actually fight and win against the gods, only managing to leave contributions to be picked up later by Chaldea. He really fought a war against the entire throne of heroes and won.
I'm on his side.
Sorry,
it's the pheromones being vented at me.
His only...
No, respectfully, I'm going to use that as an excuse for absolutely anything ever from now on. Odysseus vented his pheromones at me and I'm distracted. that's the great... I'm never going to let this go. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
So his own downfall actually came because he had a blind spot only possible in this Lostbelt.
Uh-huh.
The Lostbelt predates most of the Greek mythology,
Okay.
so the drastic change in the timeline meant certain things didn't happen. Amongst them was the Trojan War itself. The idea of a Trojan horse never needed to be employed. And the first to take advantage of this was his own proper human history variant, who purposely never used his noble phantasm, knowing that should the army of servants lose the conflict, Chaldea needed a trump card.
Good for him.
The proper
smart boy thinking.
The proper human history version of himself eliminated two things from his own memory, knowing that because how fate works, his loss would empower the Lostbelt version.
Mm-hmm.
For context, think of it like Shiro versus Archer, where they're gaining each other's memories.
Ah, yes, okay. So obviously he got rid of his memories of Penelope.
Yes.
That's gotta be one.
Yeah,
because that's his drive.
Yep, and the Trojan horse, obviously.
Yeah. That's two solid memories to get rid of if you want to weaken Odysseus.
It's hilarious that you brought up the drive, because that is the literal wording I had here.
Oh,
because the drive needed to be as formidable as his proper human history version.
I mean, look, can you call it anything but drive when 20 years and he still came home to us? Granted, like, okay, we'll subtract the year that he spent with, Circe. But, like, well, I mean, in Fate you can keep it in. Well, it's 20 years, right? He had no reason to believe that his wife would still be around. He had no reason to believe that she would want him back, that she hadn't remarried, that his son didn't have a new father, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, other than, like, belief in, like, that his wife was in love with him enough that she would adhere to, like, the holding out for him. But, like, 20 years, man.
So, this all allowed Chaldea to sneak multiple assassin servants across enemy lines and using one of the Lostbelt's own monsters. The carnage caused by that strategy was enough for another ambush to catch him off guard, where he would die by the hands of an otherwise very, very weak servant.
Oh, who?
Charlotte Corday.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, I thought you'd find that little bit amusing, because it shows off the true Chadness of proper human history Odysseus.
Yeah.
So you've already called Circe's class.
I did. Caster.
Yes. We can go ahead and go to Circe.
I can see the Medea inspiration. It is inspiration, right? Like, there's definitely a bit of a call out.
Both versions of Medea predate her.
Okay, yeah. My goodness. She's very cute. You know what she reminds me of? Medea Lily a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah. Not like 1-to-1, but like... She's cute. Is she a child? Does she count as a child?
No, she's not a child.
She just looks very young.
She's sprightly, but she's not a child.
Okay.
So...
Actually, in a strange turn of events, normally the Fourth Ascension is not typically my favorite in the female servants art, because it tends to be, like, so incredibly fan servicey. But something about this I really like. Like, her fourth art, something about this I'm a huge fan of. I just think it looks really fun. I think it's because, I don't know if this is the intention of the artist, but to me, there's almost like a playful vibe, but an almost malicious playful vibe coming out of this specific art, where it very much looks like she's like playing with the strings of something and leading you along. You know what I mean? You get it?
Yeah, I get exactly what you mean. I'm 90% sure that's the intention.
Okay. I don't know if that's the intention, but like, she's got a vibe that I like.
So, while I led with Achilles, Circe actually predates him in FGO, being introduced a full 2 years earlier than he was.
Okay.
I don't really want to spoil the entire chapter, but she was secretly summoned to Chaldea for a reason she didn't understand, and then proceeds to sneak into the Salem Singularity disguised as her niece and student Medea. Mm-hmm. She and Medea are generally pretty good to each other. She just doesn't approve of Jason, and she generally doesn't approve of Jason, because,
Mm-hmm.
You remember the Medea?
Yes. Yes. Yep. No. So, like I said, Circe politely greeted them, and then when her niece lied to her, she was like, "You're my niece and your family, but you need to go. Bye."
So her relationship with Odysseus is a very painfully one-sided love. In Fate, she would never confess her feelings to him in full during their time together on the island, instead sending him off after having him stay with her for a time. She would ultimately reunite with him in Chaldea, where she was finally able to formalize that they'd not work out so that she could move on emotionally.
Oh, yeah, that's what the reference was in the line. Okay.
Something, if memory serves, is orchestrated by Medea.
That's nice of Medea.
Circe is
Do she and Medea kind of make up?
I mean, they're just on good terms post Chaldea, because Medea knows that everything went really wrong with her life meeting Jason. Even Medea Lily, who's a little bit enamored with Jason, still knows that.
But by being able to kind of acknowledge what was wrong, it leads them to actually, because I was like, if fate had gone the other way and Medea had not been if Medea had not realized that her life with Jason was like shit and stuff like that, I'm assuming that then the logical response to Circe would be that they wouldn't be on good terms. But because Medea has that, like, hindsight is 20/20 and regret.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's not like Circe was ever personally hurt by Medea. She just didn't approve of Medea lying to her and killing family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And she wasn't gonna like follow or help Medea be any more self-destructive than she was already being.
Yeah. Okay.
So I have more to say though. Circe is a character who really struggles with chronic loneliness.
Oh.
And in some part, that's because she has a hard time being forward, instead, often changing the people she meets into piglets so that they can't leave her. Something she consistently goes back on after enough protest.
As someone who, in the most affectionate way possible, right, to describe it, makes friends and then never lets go unless something actually horrendous happens in their friendships, right? I get it. Because, like, there are a lot of people who don't have, like, high school friends by the time they get to adulthood, right? Like, there are people who don't keep the people that they knew when they were, like, younger, right? No. I am clinging with claws to my friendships. I refuse to let that shit just drift off. So, we actually see this side to her rather heavily in Fate's Samurai Remnant, where she would form two bonds with two different masters. Okay. The first was Chiemon, Master of Lancer. Okay. Outwardly, he did his usual shtick of being an ass and pushing her away, but he would consciously for a while maintain a base camp in her territory where Circe was bound as a rogue servant. So he would of course go on through the rigmarole of pigging, but he would stay around and protect the area from monsters until he had to leave due to actions he took during the Holy Grail War, being tracked to that territory. After that happened, the one to bond with Circe next would be Iori, who Circe would turn into a pig, thinking he was attacking as the servants at that time were all attacking her for being one of the only ones not affected by a spell controlling every servant in the war. Okay. Iori would end up a pig after an entire day spent making, or would end being a pig after an entire day spent making an antidote, and she would see them off. She would then later try again and accidentally turn Iori's talking book into a pig as well. Oh. It is readily apparent that she's prone to pig transforming to bind people into spending time with her. Iori kind of figured this out and invites her for a meal into his household, something which seemed to touch her. Oh. My last fun anecdote about her Fate presence is that she's actually a working woman in Fate Requiem holding down two separate jobs. The first as the owner of a restaurant chain, specifically making like a porridge type meal. A single mom who works two jobs, who loves her kids and never stops. The second is she's one of the MCs of a Holy Grail War tournament, having Blackbeard, Marcus Vespanius Agrippa, and sometimes Euclid act as commentators. On that note, I do have a question about her relationship with one other servant. Right? Yes. Does she have like a motherly auntie relationship with Asterios? Because she is also his aunt. A little bit, yeah. I think she actually, I think that will come up here. Okay. I was going to say, because if she is Medea's aunt, she is also.
They haven't shared any notable stories together, but I believe that is in the bond lines.
No, that's unfortunate. They would make a cute, like, almost mother-son pairing.
I personally want more. Circe is one of my low-key kind of favorite servants in FGO, just because I like her, like, just the melancholy of her story.
I like how well these two characters are meshing together so far in Fate, and I'm liking what I'm hearing. Okay, so. Yeah, I'm not gonna run and hide anymore. I should be able to face him with a smile. But even I'm not made of stone or bronze, you know? There'll be times when I'll want to be alone. So that was to Odysseus. Okay. The next one is to Penelope, which I'm loving here because it's just... lying in the corner in a fetal position. I feel bad for Medea. She's such an idiot, all because she neglected Hecate's herbalist techniques. Poor child. I'm really jealous. At least the you in Chaldea doesn't seem to be unhappy. You became a good woman. What? Fist of defeat? I didn't teach you that. Medea Lily. What a handful. I can't stand her. She stresses me out so much it makes me molt. Demonic remodeling it is. Is there any meaning to remodeling a demonic god pillar?
In reference to Medea Lily making a...
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Medea and Jason. Ugh, it's that guy, Jason. I kind of knew he would get summoned eventually. Well, at least the young Medea is welcoming him. I was a little worried there. I look forward to seeing his true abilities as a nautical hero. Wait a minute. He's a saber? Jason. Looking at him makes me think deeply about the true strength of a hero. He's a man looking like an exhibition of heroes' flaws, though. Okay, so the next one's for Asterios. Okay. So he's my sister Pasiphae's son. The one with the horns. I don't really know him well, but who told him to do something like that? Make him stop calling me auntie, all polite. Such an earnest child from that little sister. Truly, a mischief from the gods. Ah, jeez, you can call me aunt, though. Stop doing it in public.
I always think, like, without even looking at that bond line, I always got the impression that Circe very much is, like, a wine aunt in personality.
That's fair. You know what? I approve of that. An archer of the Argonauts. Oh, right, Atalanta. She and I actually get along. We talked a lot when we were on the island. We even argued over who had worse tasted things. The princess of the forest, the goddess Hecate, and the goddess Artemis have a close relationship. So don't you feel some affinity? The lifestyle of not relying on men is relieving and the best. I like sailors. Even a pirate like Blackbeard is all right. The thing was, he wouldn't shut up about me being an old lolly or legal lolly or something. Ugh, so I turned him into a pig and hung him upside down in the walk-in freezer. Do you think that was bad? No. No, I don't think that was bad. I think that was exactly what you should have done.
Exactly what he fucking deserved.
Yeah. Okay, Charlemagne, Roland, Astolfo, Bradamante. No, please wait. I'm a completely different person from that Alcina whatever witch. To begin with, I hear her figure is superb, and don't tell me about changing lover knights repeatedly. To mistake me with that woman. Ugh, don't say. Don't agree so easily. How extremely rude these stupid paladins are. So they are mistaking her for Alcinous.
Yep.
Okay.
Another one of those stories that was
Yeah. Baby. No, baby. No peachy. Okay. All right. Scrolling. Art.
That's her talking with another servant.
Oh.
At one of her cafes.
Scrolling. Art. Oh. Scrolling. Art. Oh. The dragon.
So I'm pretty sure that's her disguised as Medea.
Yeah, because those are the dragon teeth knights. Okay.
So Circe uses the Staff of Hecate in combat, which she can use to summon monsters, including Scylla. She also wears a mystic code that acts as falcon
That's
wings.
Unfortunate. The whole Scylla thing.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a dick move.
So the falcon wings act as both a cape for Circe, as well as actually fully function wings that she can use to take flight. She is possibly one of the most capable servants at Magecraft. Anything Medea can do, Circe can totally do better.
Oh, absolutely.
She's just a lot less practiced in combat with that Magecraft than Medea is.
Yeah.
She was even strong enough to brute force through an anti-Magecraft field that was present in the Salem Singularity that otherwise left Magecraft completely useless. And servants already are like products of like a lot of Magecraft stuff. So they were also weakened, and she found a way to brute force her way through that.
Mm-hmm.
She's also skilled in transformation magecraft, both to others and herself. As well, she maintains great knowledge on potions and medicines.
Yep, which is traditional to her stories as the disciple of Hecate. Alright, so normal stuff I'm expecting. Bounded field, appearance manipulation, medicine with the poison. Yeah, okay. Territory creation, item construction, high-speed divine words, poisoned meal. So, because the Kaikeon. We've talked about Kaikeon before. With another video as well. Let's see. Advice for sailing, because she gave advice for them. Not that they followed it, but, you know, she tried. So we've got a Noble Phantasm, Medible Piglets, a reality marble.
Yeah, so Circe calls forth a massive feast that draws her enemies in with temptation to eat. Should they consume the food, they'll find themselves transformed into a pig. As a side note, the result of her addition to FGO is the need for FGO to deadass have a trait added to the game called Immune to Pigify, so that we don't ruin otherwise climactic fights by, say, turning Zeus into a fucking baby pig.
Okay, so designed by Hidari. Hidari has also done Ibaraki Doji and Watanabe no Tsuna.
Two servants you are very familiar with.
So I've actually seen everyone that Hidari has done.
Well, we have a few things to go over, but if you want, there's like a personal favorite bit of fan work I'd be willing to show you if you want.
I might be. Oh, she's so pretty. I love the colors. Like the gold and the pink and the purple. It's very pretty. Because of that, she's almost got a similar palette to like some of the I think the Valkyries, like the original.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, similar palette. Not exactly the same. There's like some similarities to like the Valkyrie palette. Oh, the piglets. Oh my god, they're so cute. They shouldn't be that cute. Oh, the poison Kaikeon. And the wolves.
I do love the little wing flapping.
Yeah. Let's skip a little forward. Oh, the feast. Oh, demon pig, angel pig. I love all the pigs. Can definitely see though that she's older than Odysseus, because Odysseus's NP was like much fancier.
Well, she's also a 4-star. Even for modern day, that's pretty standard. Like, that's not that bad for modern day.
So we've got this. So this is her in Samurai Remnant?
Yep.
Okay.
No arcade, but a Samurai Remnant. This is going to show like all of her animations and like different types of attacks she can do. So we can skim around this if you want.
Just skip a little forward occasionally. I mean, you can definitely see some of the same moves from, like, FGO presented here, just, like, you know, multi-dimensionally.
I mean, that's, like, a lot of the FGO carryovers kind of do that.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Fair. Oh, yeah, because they're the servants from Samurai Remnant that are now in FGO.
Yep.
They've recolored her wings to be sort of more like hawk-like on the outside, but they still have the light up occasionally on the inside, which I like. It looks very cool that way. Gives you a little extra dimension of, like, interest, you know? Bop.
These are going through all of her specials now.
Okay. Oh, the pigs. I almost wish that she could, like, turn you into bacon. Oh, riding the pig. Okay. Oh, she's, like, pushing you back, not just, like, trampling you. Okay. The Kaikeon. Is this gonna show her NP?
Yes.
Okay. I assume now that they're increasing it. Yeah. That's a big pig. I mean, look, you present me with a feast. Okay, and I've got one more?
Yep. This is the scene of Iori being turned into a pig.
Oh.
You can skip forward a tiny bit.
Saber. なんと見事な音響だ。ああ、そうだ。すごいな。彼女は人間ではない。サーバントだ。この小石川に陣取るハムレだろう。
She looks so harmless and cute. She couldn't possibly do anything bad.
Nothing bad at all.
But we are weak to a power like this. What was it? A woman. What? She had us in just 3 words. Come inside. Welcome to the best part of your lives. I've got you. Don't worry, Circe's got you now. I always love that line, and that's just like, we are weak to a power like this. What was it? A woman. What? Oh. She's really promoting her food.
A shrewd businesswoman is she.
I admire the grind. You got it, girl. I like to imagine that for any woman eating it, it's just good fucking food. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't turn you into shit. It's just good food.
君、私を何だと思っているんだ。そっか、そうだよね。では、残念だが、少々強硬な手を使わせてもらおうかな。
Are you gonna get pigified? Ah. That didn't sound healthy. Oh, that's rough, dude. That really sucks. You want to pig out on it. Alright, show me the porridge provocation trophy earned. That's a...
So this leads to like one of the best things you can do.
What?
When you have Iori transformed as a pig, they still have you play as him.
Oh god. I love it.
And amongst the scenes, because he has to get up a cliff, and normally like the animation for getting up a cliff is like Iori runs at Saber and Saber does the little like alley-oop thing.
Yeah.
That's not possible as a 4-legged tiny little piglet.
Yeah.
You know what Saber does?
What?
He just yeets Iori up the cliff.
I love that. Alright, you said you had maybe something else to show me?
Yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. It was going to depend on your reaction to
what should I type
Medea.
in?
Look up Osner FGO.
Osner FGO?
Yes.
Is that correct spelling?
Yes, this is an FGO fan content creator who basically built their content, like their original content that had them go viral, was a bunch of shit, just like animations done with the Samurai Remnant model for Circe.
Okay.
We'll look at it because this is the fun one, I think.
This
that
one?
you'll enjoy the most.
Okay. Aww.
I thought you'd enjoy this little animation.
That's cute.
Lot
what
of
the
fun.
fuck is that?
Oh, I can actually explain that to you.
Can we watch it?
It'd have to be cut from the stream.
Okay. God tier. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna close this now. Oh, I can close this too?
Yep.
Okay, alright. Okay. So now we're into art. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Oh, so Is there a difference between, like, costume 1 and costume 2? Is it just 2 different colors of his costume?
So the difference there is those are his second and third ascensions, but they later released it so you can put the helmet on in the middle of his his costume.
Okay, but what about the color difference?
Just 2 different colors of armor.
Okay. All right. That's what I was wondering. All right. Gallery. Oh, yes. Wow, they made it bigger.
It's like half his torso.
Whoa! Dream Striker. I mean, they're cute. There's not much going on, but they're cute. We've definitely had more interesting ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw it in the NP. Okay. Alright. Ooh. Red Juice knows what's up. This is for the ladies. Red Juice. I understand you. You and I gotta start following you on everything. Okay. Alright. Okay, so we do have like these. And I saw 2 of these, but I think I didn't see this one. Yeah. I'd missed a couple of them. But I like this art, like the little, like this is very cool.
Mm-hmm. That was all from the event where Odysseus was finally summonable, where they had the Circe Odysseus reunion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Symbol of adventure. Hey, look. That's a loom in the background.
Mm-hmm.
Like his wife weaving the funeral shroud and then unweaving it. I love the Indiana Jones advertisement. The Aegis? Yes, I had it while I was alive. Thanks to Athena's benevolence, that armor made of divine steel was always with me in my adventures. I can't count how many times it saved my ass. I had it on during the battle inside Troy, too. I bet the enemy soldiers were terrified to see a commander wearing an iron helmet that barely showed his face. To tell you the truth, I was hoping that would be the effect. Though I don't think the Aegeus was ever mentioned in the Iliad, nor even in the Odyssey. That's not surprising. You may not believe this, but Athena's actually shy. She probably didn't want future generations to know that she gave a divine treasure to a human because she felt such affection for him. So, has Athena manifested in Chaldea? No, didn't think so. Anyway, I just wanted to say that the Aegeus was always with me now. But it was only with me during the most tempestuous and dramatic period of my life. When I wasn't out on my adventures, but rather living peacefully, my prized Aegeus was properly polished and displayed. Who polished it, you ask? That would have to be me or my dear Penelope. On that note of him wearing the helmet inside the walls, Odysseus in the story does famously. So Odysseus is tasked by Zeus to kill the son of Hector, right? Mm-hmm. And the Astyanax, right? And he has to do it because the gods, Zeus essentially tells him that if you do not kill this baby, we, the gods, will make sure that he will come back and kill you. Because, like, Odysseus is like, I could raise him, right? He would never know where he comes from. And Zeus is like, no. We would tell him. Right? Like, basically forcing him to make the decision to kill a baby or not to kill a baby. Right? And one of the things is that... so there was the interlude with Hector, with his son, where he takes off the helmet, right? Mm-hmm. Because his son was afraid of it. That's reflected when Odysseus first meets the baby with the helmet. Because he kind of takes off the helmet because the baby is afraid of it. Temporarily. And it's very sad. Unless you're Danny Mata, there's a anime there's a YouTuber who does reactions to anime, and he, for a 1 million subscriber special, he said he would react to Epic the Musical, right? So he's been doing like 2-3 songs at a time, and he got to the point with the yeet the baby, and he was like, dude, just yeet the baby, just take the thing and yank it. Like, man was just go. So unless you're Danny Mata. He got super memed because of it in the Epic fandom, and then he doubled down, making a TikTok being like, yes! Yeet the baby!
Horrific?
Yeah. Alright, innocent blue eyes. Ah, obviously. Can we get this costume?
Look, summer outfits are not all out of the question.
That is true. He is fine as the blue sky, and he traverses through like a white boat. The traveler does not know the meaning of pausing, and that's what makes him beautiful. I agree. The outlook of only those who have experienced an adventure. Oh, okay. So I actually like that a lot. Because that's from, like, inside the mech. Valentine's return gift. From the cockpit of Troia Hippos, the sky stretches out across the vast ocean. Just for today, you are this horse's rider. Now fly. Far across the infinite blue, an exhilarating adventure awaits you. That's nice. Gimmick Master. I do not know the other servant in this, do I?
Not really.
Cool. Then we're not gonna read it. We will just acknowledge that he is up there in his hard hat. This is OSHA approved. No, it's not OSHA approved because his tits are still out, for God. But, you know, it might have been OSHA approved if his jacket was zipped up. You mean he was wearing a hard hat? Better than I ever do. All right. And Circe. Okay. So, with the Kaikeon and the pig. That's adorable. That's adorable. Does her pig have a name?
No, she just has a bunch of piglets.
Aw. I kind of hoped the big one would have a name. I just with the Kaikeon. Does that look like a Tamagotchi?
A little bit.
It kind of looks like a Tamagotchi. It's beautiful.
Tamagotchi.
I know. I realized it after I said it. Okay. Yeah, I was just called Pig. That's sad. It should be called more. Okay. So we have one extra illustration by Hidari. Very nice. I didn't see. So these are... I kind of wish they listed both. Then. Watching them sail away. Fate
Pig. Thank you,
wow.
Babanshi.
Yeah, okay. So she's been around longer. She has more Cs.
Yes.
Well, we do have a traveling outfit. Oh, Caster of Okeanos?
Oh, yeah. She came out during the Epic of Remnants, and the identities of a bunch of servants from that time were obscured. Her obscured name was Caster of Okeanos.
Oh, so just referencing the old chapter?
Yes.
Okay, so... wolves, pigs, lions. Yep, we got them all there. Well, I don't see the bears, but you know. Horse? Oh, you mean host. No problem. Leave all the party planning to me. I'm glad you entrusted me, the Falcon Witch, with the task. Now that I've been appointed for the job, even if it were my own funeral, I'll make it a grand banquet where laughter will constantly fill the air. After all, I'm pretty picky when it comes to food. I'll prepare all the best ingredients, ones that would be fit for an offering to Hecate. A splendid wine that even Dionysus, the god of harvest, would be jealous of, and will have so many innocent maidens even the god of shepherds and flocks, Pan, would resurrect himself from the underworld. I don't have to go that far? Why? No, that won't do, master. One must give it their all for the sake of degradation. Humans gain life to indulge themselves in banquets. That's right. The joy of a banquet is what life is all about. Me too, girly pop. Me too. First, forget about titles and status and throw obligations and duties into a waterfall or something. There's no need to think of tomorrow and no need to reflect back on the past. Just relax and surrender yourself to me. Forget about morning and night and just drown yourself in the delicacies and the pleasures of the flesh. There's no need to hesitate. Death is always right around the corner. Just enjoy the present. You don't need an invitation to this party. Yep, just a spoonful of this barley drink Kaikeon. You changed your mind? You're not putting me in charge? Aw, come on. I'll do it right. Hello? Give me a chance! Girly pop. Alright. Witch's Kitchen. Oh. There's a little piggy. It's a little piggy. Valentine's Day. The witches of Hecate, both mentor and mentee, head to the kitchen. They may be of a different culture, but they are more confident in their cooking skills. Cookbook in hand, they arrange their witch's brew to suit the modern palate. What manner of trouble will their minty chocolates cause? Yeah, Circe and Medea. Adorable. Pink Piglet. Okay. And this is another Valentine's return. Yep. Do you have a... Jesus.
It's about the size of the Iliad.
Oh my god. Okay. Do you have a moment, Master? I'd like to discuss something with you. Oh, I know. It's that time of year. I know very well why you are so restless, like you're waiting for someone. But would you spare a few minutes to listen to what I, Medea, would like to say? This is Medea!
Oh, is this Medea's scroll? It's Circe's. It's probably Medea speaking here.
Oh
but...
my fucking god. Okay. What I want to discuss is my Magecraft workshop. They took it over, Auntie and Medea Lily. They said they were going to convert it into a kitchen so they could make confections, and they were going to call it the Witch's Kitchen, and it will only be open on Valentine's Day. This is a direct response to the last CE.
Yep.
What a nuisance. Besides, calling it the Witch's Kitchen is a bad idea. It's like blatantly admitting that the food has special properties and ingredients. But then Auntie said, we, as highly celebrated witches of myth, must create and use only objects of the highest quality, from confectionery-making tools to aprons. It's just like how one must have the proper feathers if one wishes to fly. She was quite enthusiastic about it. Just the fact that she's spending time making sweets is taking away from her being a witch. Doesn't she realize that she's just an amateur patissier at this point? She even tried to persuade me to join, but I politely declined. You think that's a shame? I already got involved because I lent them my aprons? Your eye is keen as ever, I confess, it's true. Never mind Lily, but Auntie. She may not seem like it, but she actually looks good no matter what she wears. So I may have gone a bit overboard, working feverishly at my sewing machine. But Auntie was a bit judgmental. She said that she never knew I had such homely talents. Ugh. At any rate, I'm quite proud of how cute the little chef's coats turned out. I can't speak to the quality of the pastries, but I want you to at least pay attention to how wonderful their outfits are. Since it seems I have no choice, I suppose I will let my workshop go for now and just crash in some saber's room. That's why I'm here, Master. I have a few questions. Auntie's been barging into my room day and night, asking me so many things. Here are some of the things one of mythology's greatest wishes has been asking of me. I want to know what Master's favorite flavor is. Do you think they really like it really sweet? Or would bitter be better? Are there any seasonings Master doesn't like? You know, so I can balance things properly in the future. Now that I think about it, handmade confections are so lame. What do you think, Medea? If Master was a pig in their past life, what breed do you think they'd have been? I hear there's a hybrid brand of pigs from called Tokyo from Japan. Sounds romantic, huh? It has... Okay, so that's a character I don't... Yeah, in its name. Who cares about breeds? Hey, Medea, I hear that Master is really traumatized by Valentine's Day. Even if they eat our chocolates with a smile while we watch, I hear there's vomiting back in Master's room. Sounds like a joke, doesn't it? Huh? So there you have it. Anyway, it looks like Auntie's a bit occupied right now and she can't come over, so she sent me here on her behalf. Really, Lily should be doing this, not me. Honestly, Auntie is so fickle she gives me a headache. Don't you agree, Master? But it does look like, in spite of herself, she's doing her best, so would you be so kind as to answer the questions I asked? Oh, it's fine. You don't need to be so formal and thank me. I keep telling you. I'm Medea, really, honestly. I told you when I got here. I'm not lying. Honestly, you are so rude. Jesus.
An entire fucking novel, there's a plot twist at the end.
Fuck. Okay. Alright. Outfit. Travel outfit. Okay. Oh.
Thought you were getting a craft essence. No, you got an HR complaint.
Okay, New Year's greetings. Okay, so she's in here. Oh, she's literally right there. Okay, so now, round up, right? So there's Deermud up there being chased by boars. Artoria. There's Orion. Got Hokusai, Mash, Hokusai's little friend Cthulhu. Her, Circe.
Well, technically it's Hokusai and... Oh, wait.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah. Artemis, with the white hair in the background. I think that's it. I think that might be all the servants pictured here. But you know what we can do? We can test that. The fuck is Fion? Hang on. Fion, lying on the roof, just spread eagled. Okay. There's the fish of knowledge. Okay. All right. Finally, one of those that we know everyone in. It's rare on the anniversary ones because there's almost always someone I don't know. Okay. That's somebody else's CE, right?
No, that might actually be Circe.
Oh, is it? Oh.
Different art style.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
Different outfit, but yeah.
Maybe. The fuck is that demon ass looking thing behind her?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, alright. Mixed juice. This is, it is not hers. She's in one of those photos in the background. So I will just... Doc Kaike. Oh, we saw this before and you were like, we'll get back to that character. Okay, I see you. One of the most prominent genius casters of the century, best known for her discovery of Kaikeion particles. Now she's detected particles in New York as well. She has devoted herself completely to her fieldwork. Be careful if you cross her path, as she has a habit of turning people into adorable piglets. Okay, so from the same reality. But yeah, so there's people in the background that we've seen before. Like, these are all characters. Okay. And I think, if I'm correct, Christopher Columbus's beard. I'm not wrong.
No.
All right. Mushrooming. Oh my goodness. Is that Serenity?
Yep.
And
You know that character now.
Semiramis? Thank you. I can't believe I got that. Those are some poisonous looking mushrooms. I'm going to be honest though. I would eat that. I would.
Now this is when we saw Semiramis, but this was...
But we didn't read it when we saw it.
Yeah, we saw the big character and the fact that it just wasn't translated.
Yeah. Take a bite, she smiles. It's delicious. It's packed with lots of different things. What's in it? Isn't it uncouth for a maiden to say that? With a huge smile that doesn't even allow for a conversation to occur, and with a look that expects something, she says it again. 1 bite, please. I'll be honest, I would eat it just because of the color. Can you tell the... What?
Nothing.
It's such a pretty color. I would eat something that color.
You know,
I have eaten something
animals
that
in
color.
the wild use bright, like, fluorescent colors to signal to potential predators that they're poisonous.
So do peppers, and we eat those. We eat most of those birds that do that. We eat snakes. We eat fish that do that.
I'm just saying.
And all I'm saying is humans have a long and storied history of completely ignoring that. Aww. Dia de los Muertos. Heroic spirit event attire. So yes, Day of the Dead. But yeah, that's very cute. I like the kind of color change to a much darker palette. Okay, and then Dango over the moon. I don't know who this is in front.
Yeah, you do.
Do
you
I?
covered her a little bit in the overview. It's Kaya.
Oh, okay. And then there's Circe, and that's at Tamamo?
That's Tomo Aria.
Okay. I knew it was one of the Tamamos. I could not have told you which.
This is purely a samurai remnant thumbnail.
Yeah. I mean, I'll translate it.
CE.
I don't remember if we did it in that video, so... Only having a sword is enough to fight. At first, I only showed up at the tenement house, but eventually I started taking care of people when I was away. Lately, I've been teaching more and more people how to cook. My brother came home late as usual, but while we savored the sweetness, we all took a short break. Okay. Yeah. Cute. So yeah.
Yeah, that's Odysseus and Circe. Honestly, that sectioned it up much longer on my end than I really thought it would be.
Yeah. Honestly, the other thing I will say is, hands down, I really enjoyed pretty much every single art I saw of these characters, you know? Like, normally there's, like, sometimes I don't always love the fourth art for the female servants because it's often very fan servicey, and that's just... I can appreciate it, but it's not really gonna be, like, as interesting to me as the first 3 arts often are. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't necessarily want to be staring at
But
a
arguably,
shot.
you've gotten a lot more of a view of Odysseus's tits than Circe's.
Yeah, and I liked Circe's fourth art a lot. This is Odysseus' fourth art, and I think it looks really good. I mean, putting aside the chest hole, I mean, I like that, too. I would have been satisfied without the tits out for God, you know? Like, I would have been perfectly satisfied with this, because this also looks cool as fuck. Like, this is just an example of, it's just cool. Like, that's just epic looking. You know what I mean?
The musical.
Yeah. Like, fuck, that's just cool. I can't. There's nothing I can say other than that's a really cool art. I mean, I like it. On that note, normally we'd give a hint for the next servant video, but actually our next Sekhie Reacts to come out will be updates.
Are we going to give a hint for the one after that?
I think we probably should. Yes, updates is coming next. We started prepping updates over a month ago, so when you see this, updates will already have been recorded most likely, and hopefully there's no mushrooms in my walls fucking us over again.
Honestly, the next one absolutely could get us fucked over, but we'll move past that.
So you say that. Haha.
Look, we'll be fine, just so long as we don't go into the room until she's ready.
All right, then. Wait, so you like hang on. How do you feel about Odysseus and Circe?
Oh, I love them.
Because this is arguably one of the stories that, like, you didn't need me to tell you about. Like, you know the Odyssey
I know the
already.
Odyssey pretty well at this point. Look, it's funny. So, I did mention, but I'll start with Circe here because she's the older of the two servants. Circe has, since she came out, been one of my low-key favorites. I kind of wish she was better in FGO because I love her. I have her in P5. I'd love to put more into her. I have her on, like, all of my accounts for FGO. I just can't find a good reason to use her most of the time.
Doesn't pair well with other servants that are good meta?
Yeah, not really. Because it's the immune to Pickify thing. She's single target, but because they need to make sure you can't, like, completely ruin the climactic flow of a fight by turning all the bosses into pigs, that stat is like her bread and butter, doesn't really work. And she's a caster, so her damage is lower. I don't get a lot of excuses to use her. And then I already have servants that do her job better.
Okay.
But I love her design. I love using her in Samurai Remnant especially because that's probably the most I use her. And yeah, no. And then Odysseus was a servant that I wanted for the longest. Like this was.
I'm actually so upset that we didn't do this servant earlier because now knowing who this face is, Odysseus was on Raid Up last year when we were farming on one of the 2 farming events I did. Mm-hmm. He was on Raid Up during one of them for like a full week, and I didn't know who he was, so I just kept skipping over it. Oh, the way I would have sank quartz into this man.
So,
all right.
Technically, it would be giving it away if we did that on stream, but it's 13 viewers here. Only 13.
That is true. There's not that many of you.
And it's not like we haven't been pretty damn transparent.
True. It's not like the hints were hard. Also, I'm going to drop my friend summons and stuff, get them out of the way.
So, like, this doesn't mean anything at all.
It means nothing.
But just once we're on this random banner that we happen to land on here.
Yeah, absolutely random. I'm going to spend tickets as well. I'm going to go through all my tickets first. Totally a coincidence, guys. Absolutely don't know what's happening, you know?
This is a called Deo's Boy banner, so these CEs, some of them might start talking to you.
Oh. Ooh, hey. Yeah, fun CE.
Hey, look, a coup.
Yep. You know, I was a horse girl when I was a kid.
We're getting like the Caldea Boy CEs back to back here. This will be nice. That means if there's loading, it won't necessarily be a CE.
I also need to exchange my fragments.
Could do it after the tickets.
I will.
Double or nothing.
That's something. Not what I wanted, though. Okay.
Let's get your fragments exchanged in. You gonna drop 10s?
Yeah. I don't know when to, like, stop myself, per se, because, like, what's the next banner upcoming that I really wanted to roll on?
You're also looking at Waver and Ozymandias as what you're also waiting for.
Yeah. But I think Ozzy's gonna come, like, 2 or 3 times this year.
He'll be back, and all 3 of these servants are non-limited, so they can't, like, you could in theory get Waver Ozzy rolling right now.
Okay.
So it's not like it's as big a deal as if you were saving for someone who was limited.
Yeah.
Actually, you getting Waver Ozzy here would be like one of the most hilarious. Ozzy especially would be. Oh wait, that's something. I got a secret. A Sumanai.
Yeah.
You getting Aussie here would be hilarious because they share the same class.
Oh, I'm having real bad luck, guys. I'm calm. I'm calm.
You should clip that exact moment and put it at the end of a future video.
I'm calm.
Odysseus 限界した。人類史を救うというお前たちの大冒険。俺が幾ばくかの力となろう。前へ進むための一歩がいかに重く苦しいものか多少は知っているからな。
Man, this feels like 2 weeks ago when I threatened to stop playing Witcher 1 because I wasn't making any progress, and then immediately made a bunch of progress.
But I love Odysseus, but that's because Odysseus was this was my brother has, for the better part of like the 4 or 5 years he's been playing FGO, been screaming he wanted Theseus. Until Odysseus came out, I was the same way with Odysseus, because Odysseus is like the Greek hero that I really liked as a kid.
Like I said, I once wrote a paper that Odysseus is a trickster character. Like, Odysseus as a Greek hero, he's a trickster character, and trickster characters are always amazing.
And, you know, then finally he comes out and I fucking chortle at the fact that he has the fucking...
Pheromone slot?
No, the Code Geass fucking Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Because what screams the subterfuge tactic of deception than giant mech with laser beam?
But you also like Code Geass.
Yes. And
yeah.
he came out around the time we were watching Code Geass, too.
That's like a twofer for you. Not only do
I
you
saw it come out, and it was the first time I was watching Code Geass. Watched maybe a month or so prior, and one of the first things I see is people posting edits of that Noble Phantasm with the Code Geass thing.
So not only do you have the 1-2 punch of you like Odysseus as a character and you're already well aware of the story, but also the way that they've written it with Circe gets along really well and doesn't make either of them a shit person, right? But also the Code Geass imagery.
And then of course, when he finally comes out in NA, I already like his character. I already like Circe. They do Aeon Spring Breeze, the event they introduce him in NA, and I finally read his story. And high key, it's not a very high stakes or heavy event storytelling wise, but it is high key one of my favorite events just for the sort of emotional anti-romance they do for that story.
Is that an event that I'll get to play, or is it not?
No, it only ever ran once, and it's never being rerun. You would have to rewatch old scenes on YouTube.
That's disappointing.
They do have a lot. I really think they should rerun older events a lot more, because these are stories that you would love to have a chance to read more organically.
Yeah, because this is one that I would have really enjoyed, I think. Well, on that note,
yeah,
we'll see you next time.